Chapter 741. So, let's go back to the original question. Fong Bujua sized him up and asked again, "Who are you?" "Zachariah." The blond man didn't beat around the bush and directly answered Brother Ju's question, using the language and title that you can understand to define. "I am an angel of ability." "I see." Fong Bujua didn't show any surprise at Zachariah's words. He just continued calmly, "My cat seems to be quite powerful." "What do you mean?" Zachariah was puzzled. "Your level isn't low, and you're the vanguard of the heavenly realm born for battle." Fong Bujua answered as he walked towards the sofa. "But you never intended to fight her head-on from the beginning." He shrugged and sat on the sofa. "This means you're either afraid of her strength, or you're afraid of the big boss behind her. Watch your words, mortal." Zachariah couldn't bear to listen any longer. He warned, "Since you know my identity, you should understand that I'm not afraid of anything, especially those disgusting, ugly monsters from the abyss of hell. Don't be agitated." Fong Bujua slumped comfortably on the sofa and replied leisurely, "You can belittle and despise them on a biological level, but you can't deny the power they possess on an objective level." At this point, he suddenly raised a hand and waved his finger. Without turning his head, he said, "Excuse me, can you turn on the lights for me? The switch is right beside you." Brother Ju's tone at this moment was like asking the waiter to help him change his plate when he was eating in a restaurant. After hearing this, Zachariah was also stunned for 2 seconds. 2 seconds later, because he couldn't think of a reason to refuse, he really did as he was told. "Thank you." After the lights were turned on, Fong Bujua responded casually and then continued, "You said you're not afraid of anything. Isn't that a bit ridiculous?" He turned around and looked at him. "You should at least be afraid of God, right? Looks like you think you know us very well." When Zachariah asked this question, he had already walked around the sofa and stood in front of Fong Bujua. However, he didn't find a place to sit down. He just stood there and looked down at Brother Ju on the sofa with a condescending gaze. "I had to do some research." Fong Bujua also looked at him and replied very calmly, "Your sense of honor, your sense of superiority, and your sense of mission are generally stronger. And the higher your level, the firmer your faith, and the purer your will. Is." He reached his hands, "The mouths, this the angels is. This, even though this, use this. The only reason I didn't fight her head on was because I was worried that you and the other innocent people within a few kilometers would be dragged into the battle and die without a complete corpse." Zacharias replied coldly. "In that case, I'm very important," Fong Bujua said with a smile. "And you are very benevolent." "Fong Bujua, I didn't come here today to talk about the Angel Encyclopedia with you, much less to receive psychological counseling." Zachariah seemed to have finally realized that Fong Bujua had unknowingly become the leader of the conversation. Therefore, he immediately changed his tone and said in a deep voice, "I came here to convey some important information to you." "Okay, I'm all ears." Fong Bujua crossed his legs, tilted his head, and made a pleased gesture. "Fong Bujua." Zachariah straightened his expression and continued seriously, "I, Zachariah, represent heaven to bestow upon you an important mission." "Oh." Fong Bujua raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" "Secretly work for us in the gambling game of the gods," Zachariah replied. I'm sorry, what you said is too general." Fong Bujua's expression now looked like he was watching a monkey show. "Can't you be more general and more specific?" To put it simply, Zachariah didn't notice anything strange. He continued speaking seriously. "On the surface, you'll continue to be Woody's chess piece, and everything will be as usual. But in reality, you'll be loyal to heaven. When necessary, we'll contact you and tell you what to do. When the time comes, you'll—" Okay. Fong Bujua shook his head and smiled, interrupting him. "You wanted to be a spy, right? I understand." You can put it that way," Zachariah replied after hesitating for half a second. Then, at this moment, Fong Bujua uncrossed his legs and leaned forward. "What are the benefits?" A very strange expression flashed across Zachariah's face. "Mortal, it's your honor to be loyal to heaven. Countless people don't have such an opportunity in their entire lives. Are you King crazy? Fong Bujue immediately cursed. He propped his hands on his knees and stood up. According to what you're saying, I'm letting you be a traitor because I think highly of you? Fong Bujue. Zachariah glared at Brother Jew and shouted, don't you even have the most basic belief and sense of justice? Even if you're not a believer of Christianity, you should know the consequences of cooperating with the devil. He glared at Brother Jew and squeezed out a threatening sentence from between his teeth. I advise you, don't let yourself be consigned to eternal damnation for the sake of immediate benefits. Huh. Fong Bujua looked at that angel with a mocking expression and laughed. Talking to me about belief? No matter how you look at it, Mr. Angel, my personal opinion is, for humans, the most correct belief is to have a firm belief in the goodness of being a human in one's heart. He reached out and pointed above his head. Whatever humans do, God isn't watching. What's watching humans all the time are the millions of consciences in the world. At this point, Brother Jew sneered. As for religion, in the era when humans were more ignorant, religion effectively carried out the functions that politics should have. This point is worth affirming. Of course, after the 19th century, there would occasionally be examples like Hong Xiuquan and Joseph Smith. I'm speechless too. He paused for a moment. In short, in most of the years, other than hindering the development of science and social civilization, as well as instigating wars, the positive effects that religion played were relatively limited. Looking at Zachariah's increasingly ugly expression, Fong Bujue still did not give up. So, it's best that we talk about belief and religion separately. Respect those who believe in science and have made practical contributions to this world. It's because of their existence that schools can teach the theory of evolution. It's also because of their tolerance that the various religions in this world can be preserved. After all, they aren't like some cultists who tie people who disagree with their views to a pillar and burn them to death. You heathen cultist who is full of evil words. Zachariah glared at Brother Jew and muttered, See, this is where your problem lies. Fong Bujue raised a hand and lightly waved his index finger. You refuse to listen to rational and logical opinions and facts, and you don't have the ability to refute. You don't admit the mistakes that you've made in the past, and you're even more unwilling to repent for them. Every time you have nothing to say in response or have no way to argue, you'll label others. The saddest thing is, some of you are so stupid that you even believe in the things that you're defending. Enough. Zachariah was clearly enraged. Fong Bujue, don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because you're the chosen one. I've never thought of it that way. Fong Bujue stuffed his hands into the pockets of his pajamas and asked arrogantly, I'm just curious. What exactly can you do? I'm going to... As Zachariah spoke, he raised his right hand and spread his fingers. However, the next second, his expression changed abruptly. What's wrong? There's no reaction from the holy power in your body? Fong Bujue took 2 steps forward. Do you want to guess why? He smiled smugly. I've said it just now. I've studied all of you. You. Zachariah was both shocked and furious at once. His gaze moved quickly, looking up, down, left, right, as though he was searching for something. There's no need to look. Suddenly, another voice rang out. It's in the wall behind you. Upon hearing this, Fong Bujue was startled and quickly looked in the direction of the voice. What he saw was that there was another person in the middle of the living room. It was a man in a black suit. Judging from his appearance, he was also a European. He had a head of short brown hair. His appearance was cold and handsome, and he exuded an intimidating aura from head to toe. Different from Zachariah's cameo appearance, this classically handsome man who had an aristocratic temperament and an arrogant personality was obviously an extremely powerful character. And who are you? Fong Bujue stared at the other party and asked, Referee. Simon only replied with 2 words. What referee? Fong Bujue was just about to continue asking when Simon ignored him and said to Zachariah, Zachariah, how does it feel to be trapped by a human scheme? At this moment, fear was written all over Zachariah's face. Listen, I'm here because you don't have to explain it to me, Simon interrupted. You don't have the right to explain it to me. Zachariah instantly realized what the other party was going to do next. He almost roared, "How dare you?" "Ha!" Just as he said the word, "How dare," Simon had already raised his hand and snapped his fingers. After the snap, Zachariah's body exploded from the inside. In an instant, blood, shattered organs, bones, meat paste were all over the wall and the floor. My friend. Fong Bujue wiped his face with his hand and wiped off the blood covering his eyelids. He looked at Simon and said, "I'll make it clear in advance. I won't clean up this mess by myself. Don't worry." Simon glanced at Brother Buja. "The one cleaning up the floor is already here." Before he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared. Hey! Fong Bujua widened his eyes and shouted, "Who's the one cleaning up the floor? What's going on? If you have the guts to play with a corpse explosion. If you have the guts, wipe the blood clean for me." Knock, knock, knock. Just as he was complaining loudly, outside the door, there was suddenly a knock. Chapter 742. Fong Bujua whipped his head around to look at the door. At that moment, his mind was racing. So late at night, who could it be? Has Arthas returned? Or is it the neighbor downstairs who came up to ask after hearing the explosion? If it is the latter, after I open the door, they will definitely notice the blood stains on me and the smell of blood in the room. But if I don't open the door, will they give up so easily? Just as Brother Ju was hesitating, a familiar voice came from outside the door. "Bujue, open the door. It's me." "Bao Qing?" Fong Bujue recognized the voice as Master Bao's, but that only increased the suspicion in his heart. Something is not right. He is a civil servant with a happy family and a successful career. Why would he appear at my door at 2 a.m.? His eyes darted around. Could it be that he was chased out because he had an argument with his wife? No. Even if he was chased out by his wife and was planning to spend the night at my place, he should have given me a call first. And the walkie-talkie did not even ring. So how did he get into the building? With that in mind, Brother Ju walked toward the door and said, "Oh well, Bao, it's already so late. What's the matter?" "I'm here to help you," Bao Qing replied in a serious tone. Brother Ju played dumb to stall for time as he tiptoed to the door. He looked out through the peephole. "What are you talking about?" "Bujue, I know you're watching us from behind the door." When Bao Qing replied, he and the 10 people behind him had entered Fong Bujue's line of sight. "I also know that a Ning angel died in your room." He paused. "In any case, open the door and let us in. We can talk." Click. Before he finished, Fong Bujue opened the door. Bao Qing was startled. He thought he would need to spend more time to convince Brother Ju to open the door, but before he could finish, the man had already done so. Why did you open the door so easily?" Fong Bujue continued Lord Bao's words and laughed. "There are 2 main reasons." As he spoke, he opened the door and walked back to the living room with his back facing the door. "Firstly, you have a strong army. If you really want to barge in my broken door, I'm afraid it won't be able to stop you. Now that you're using peaceful means before resorting to force, you're giving me face. Secondly, I don't have many friends. You and I have known each other for many years. I believe you won't harm me." Bao Qing revealed a meaningful smile. This smile contained a trace of gratification, a trace of bitterness, and a trace of admiration. What a good Fong Bujue. As he spoke, he led the dozen or so strong men behind him in a single file and closed the door behind him. "Then, where should we start?" Fong Bujue walked back to the living room and turned to look at Bao Qing. "Let's start with my identity." Bao Qing replied, "I, Bao Qing, have the military rank of lieutenant. I belong to the Supernatural Affairs Management and Supervision Bureau of the People's Republic of China, or 9 sections. The content of my mission in recent years is to monitor specific targets and regularly analyze and report on their threat level." Hearing this, Fong Bujue laughed. It was unclear what his laughter meant. "Do you find it hard to believe or hard to accept?" Bao Qing asked in a low voice. No. Fong Bujue stopped laughing and waved his hands. "I just realized that recently in my life there have been too many disruptive changes, and they are very interesting to me." He smiled again. Please continue. Okay, Bao Qing said. Initially, I only had one target, and that was Wang Tanj. Wait a minute. Feng Bujue immediately interrupted him. Are you kidding me? He took a few tissues from a coffee table and wiped his face. There was still a lot of blood on his face, but Bao Qing and the agents from Jioku ignored it. I remember when you first started hanging out with us, you were only in kindergarten, weren't you? You were a spy when you were only 5 years old? At first, I was just your playmate, Bao Qing explained. I was recruited when I was in the 5th grade. When I was in middle school, I became an official agent and started to carry out missions. Considering my relationship with Xiao Tan, I was assigned a long-term surveillance mission. 5th grade, you started your career so early. Brother Ju couldn't help but mock him. It's not that early. Bao Qing replied calmly. Our country's agents are trained from 9 to 14 years old. We're not a brainless organization like the CIA that likes to secretly recruit people from the Ivy League, American League of Elite Schools. We're the kind of organization that allows agents to enter the Ivy League and wait to be recruited by the CIA. Hey, that's not right. Feng Bujue suddenly raised his voice. According to what you said, someone like me, I should have been interviewed by the National Security Bureau when I was 9 years old, right? I saw your file. When you were 8 years old, they wanted to interview you. Bao Qing's bitter face showed a strange expression. But a year later, you were added to another. A list that I still can't check, and you were monitored. Huh? Didn't you say that when you were in middle school, Xiao Tan was the only target to be monitored? Feng Bujue asked again. At first, you were not under my surveillance, Bao Qing said. I don't know why. Your surveillance level was higher than Xiao Tan's. It was always an adult agent monitoring you. Huh? Who? Brother Ju asked with his eyes wide open. He really didn't feel like he was being monitored. Up until high school, all of your homeroom teachers were from a National Security Bureau, Bao Qing replied. After graduating from high school, I took over because I was an adult. BF*CK? Feng Bujue's eyes flashed with the faces of his homeroom teachers. They are professionals, after all. They could hide it from me for so long. In fact, Bao Qing gulped. After they finished their task of monitoring you, they all applied for a transfer because they were under too much pressure. They never did field work again. By the way, our junior high school's homeroom teacher went to Mount Wutai to be a monk the 2nd year after you graduated. What's with that? It's all your fault, Tone. Feng Bujue shouted. It has nothing to do with me. Also, what is the list that you still can't check? I've heard some rumors. Bao Qing replied. Rumor has it that the people on the list are extremely dangerous, but they seem to be useful in times of need. Feng Bujue lowered his voice and said, He didn't say anything else because he couldn't refute it. Okay, at this time, Bao Qing looked serious. If you want to catch up, there will be time in the future. Right now, I still have a mission. His eyes became sharp. Feng Bujue, I have to ask you to come with me. Where are we going? Feng Bujue asked. Of course, to Juk, Bao Qing replied. Can you give me the address? I'll take a shower and call you myself. How about that? Feng Bujue asked with an attitude of trying won't get me pregnant. The address. Don't you already know it? Bao Qing replied with a blank expression. As soon as he said this, Feng Bujue was shocked. 2 seconds later, he smiled bitterly and said, You knew. I was investigating you all this time? Yes. Bao Qing was straightforward. Then why didn't you arrest me earlier? Feng Bujue tilted his head and asked, Did you want to see how far I could go? These questions. Bao Qing said, I can't answer you. After he finished speaking, he took out a pair of handcuffs and a black balaclava from his shirt pocket. Everything was ordered by the higher-ups. Right now, right here, right now, I'm standing in front of you, and I'm telling you these things. It was all arranged by the higher-ups. It looks like I have no other choice. Feng Bujue looked into his old friend's eyes and asked with a smile. I'm sorry. Bao Qing's 3 words contained too much. He was a person who was far more complicated than he looked. His friendship with Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji was not fake. It was the purest of emotions, without any impurities. It was a bond that was extremely difficult to establish in the adult world. However, his values and his loyalty to the country forced him to take on a role that even he himself hated. Okay, I'll go with you. At this moment, Brother Jew seemed very relaxed and cooperative. He quickly scanned the Juk agents in the room and laughed. Ha! There's no need to mobilize so many people just to catch an ordinary person like me. Bao Qing walked forward and handcuffed Feng Bujua. Don't misunderstand, they are here to clean up the scene. Chapter 743. When the black hood was removed, a blinding light shone on Feng Bujua's face, making it hard for him to open his eyes. But after a few seconds, he got used to the brightness and opened his eyes to observe his surroundings. At this moment, he was sitting on a chair in a 4-meter-long square room. All 6 sides of the room were made of concrete, and all 6 sides were painted with graffiti that looked like street graffiti. There were no windows in the room, and the only exit was a very heavy-looking metal door. In the middle of the room were 2 chairs and a very ordinary wooden table. There was even a dirty lamp on the table. Because there were no wires, Brother Jew guessed that the lamp had a built-in battery. In Feng Bujua's era, micro-battery technology was very mature, and many home appliances used built-in batteries. Usually, a battery could last several months or even a year. Many manufacturers also provided a home replacement service. In addition, to the side of Feng Bujua, at the corner between the ceiling and 2 walls, there was a very obvious surveillance camera. The camera's plug was connected to the only socket in the room, and the height of the socket was close to the ceiling. Normally, unless you were as tall as Yao Ming, you wouldn't be able to touch the switch or pull out the plug even if you stood on the table. Of course, apart from these, the most noteworthy person in the room was undoubtedly the person who removed the hood for Brother Jew. It was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He wore a black casual suit with a white shirt and black tie. His appearance could be considered handsome, and he gave off a mature and indifferent feeling. His eyes revealed a bit of laziness and a bit of gloom, but it was also a very charming temperament. My name is Gu Chun. Gu Chun didn't waste any words and went straight to the point. Next, I will ask you a few questions. Please answer me seriously. As he spoke, he had already sat on the chair opposite the table and casually placed the black hood in his hand on the table. May I refuse? Feng Bujua asked with a smile. At the same time, he tried to break free from the handcuffs. His hands were still cuffed. You used a smile to cover up your inner thoughts and politely asked a meaningless question in response to my request. Guchen calmly looked at his brother Jew and said, "Very good. You look just like me when I was young." As he spoke, he took out a thermos flask, unscrewed the lid. The lid itself can be used as a cup, and poured himself a cup of coffee. I say, this big brother, how old are you this year? Feng Buju asked. 76. Guchen replied without changing his expression. Oh, Feng Bujua's expression was quite interesting. You've taken good care of yourself. It's called a hyper-spirit body, Guchen replied. It has nothing to do with maintenance. You seem to be very powerful. Feng Bujua felt that Gu Chan was talking nonsense with him seriously, so he played along. It's all right. Compared to Woody, I'm still far behind, Gu Chen replied. However, it's still relatively easy to deal with trash like Zacharias. I was just about to ask you about this. Feng Bujua said. How did you guys know? I don't remember allowing you to ask questions. Gu Chun directly interrupted him. You're here to answer questions. You don't have a right to ask questions. I'm chatting with you out of friendliness and interest. You better not push your luck. All right. Feng Bujua's expression changed slightly. Ask, I'll try my best to answer. Gu Chen paused for half a second, then said, Where are we? Huh? Feng Bujua was stunned. Didn't you hear me clearly? Then I'll ask again. Gu Chen repeated in a more serious tone. Where are we? Feng Bujua looked around. In interrogation room? I'm not asking about the environment. I'm asking about the location. Gu Chen continued. How would I know? Feng Bujua widened his eyes. I was handcuffed at home. I even wore a black hood. You guys stuffed me into a car as soon as I left the building. You guys brought me here the entire way. And you're asking me? Answer my question properly, Gu Chun said coldly. Otherwise, I'll shave your hairline back by 5 centimeters. Hey, Feng Bujue's expression changed abruptly when he heard the words hairline. He immediately raised his voice and shouted, "Do you even talk about human rights? Do you have any humanity? It's fine if someone else tells me this, but do you think it's appropriate for you to talk about human rights and humanity with me?" Gu Chun replied indifferently, "Let's not talk about the many times you crossed the boundaries of law and morality when you were underage. Just the fact that you secretly investigated the 9 departments is enough for me to make you disappear from the face of the earth." "Fuck, are you trying to scare me?" Feng Bujue didn't back down. He shouted back, "I want to see your boss. I'm the section chief of the 9 departments." Gu Chun put down his coffee cup and looked straight into Brother Bujue's eyes. "The few bosses I have are all in B City. Here, I'm the boss." He suddenly slammed the table. "Now, hurry up and answer me. Where are we? Otherwise, I'll immediately call a few strong men in and flick your D*CK to death. 200 People Avenue, ground floor." In the next second, Feng Bujue said these words as fast as lightning. "Good." Gu Chun replied in English, then immediately regained his calm expression. "Please explain the deduction process." "Isn't it just like that?" Feng Bujue replied with a face full of reluctance. "First, we can eliminate the address I found last time. I know that not long after I found that place, you moved and turned that place into a fake stronghold that was similar to a trap. Secondly, we can eliminate places that are more than 40 kilometers away from my home, because we couldn't have traveled that far in that short amount of time. Then, within the remaining range, using my body's sense of direction, as well as the frequency of my breathing to accurately calculate the time, and the feeling of my body to calculate the speed, then, taking into account the traffic lights, going up and down slopes, etc., we'll be able to arrive at a distance of less than 50 meters. With my understanding of S-City's map, I've come to this conclusion." He paused when he spoke up to this point. "Of course, I've also considered the possibility that you guys use some sort of method to greatly change my sense of time and space. If that's the case, then I really don't know where I am. I mean, not bad. Your investigative abilities are very strong, and your considerations are very thorough." Gu Chun still had a lazy expression. He took another sip of coffee and continued. "The key is, you're quite good at pretending. You have a bright future." Thank you for the compliment." Feng Bujue laughed dryly, not feeling happy at all. "All right, next question." Gu Chun quickly continued. "At this stage, how much do you know about the supernatural forces in the human world?" "Not much," Feng Bujue replied. Gu Chun didn't reply, but the silence made him feel even more pressured. "Really not much." Feng Bujue immediately added, "The related documents are too complicated, and each has its own version. I can't tell which one is correct." "Then how did you kill Zacharias today?" Gu Chun asked. "According to Bao Qing and the others' feedback, when they were on their way to your house, they could still detect his presence. But when they arrived at your house, they could clearly feel his death. I did hide a formation in the wall. It's where Arthas left his palm print. Before Brother Jew repaired it, he carved a more versatile formation into the wall in case of emergencies. And during the conversation with Zacharias, I lured him into the effective range of the formation." Feng Bujue replied, "However, I didn't kill him. It was a guy called Simon. Feng Bujue had seen Simon once in Death Quiz and knew his name, but didn't know who he was who killed him." "Oh, I see," Gu Chun muttered thoughtfully. 2 seconds later, he stood up from the chair, put away the thermos bottle, and turned to walk to the door. "I'll stop asking so much for now. Next, I'll give you a mission." "What is it?" Feng Bujue was puzzled. "There's an evil spirit in this room." Gu Chun's words made Feng Bujue gasp. "You can't see him for now, but I can tell you that after I leave, he'll take action very soon." As he spoke, he opened the metal door and walked out. "I'll give you 10 minutes. If you can come out alive, we'll continue talking." Before he finished speaking, he had already closed the door from the outside. Chapter 744. Hey. Feng Bujue was stunned for half a second before he roared. "You're joking, right?" "I'm not joking." Gu Chun actually replied, loudly from outside the door. "Then at least unlock my handcuffs for me," Feng Bujue said as he stood up from the chair and quickly ran to the door. Didn't you dislocate your thumbs when I sat down and spoke to you for the first time? Gu-chun said calmly. Fuck. How did you know? Feng Bujue said in shock. I also know that you're hiding behind the door right now. Gu-chun said to Brother Ju in a calm tone that made him want to beat him up. If I agree to unlock the door for you, then the moment I open the door, you'll launch a surprise attack on me. He shook his head. I advise you to give up on these crooked ideas as soon as possible. Hurry up and think of a way to deal with the evil spirit in the room. Can't you give me a hint? Feng Bujue asked as he took off the handcuffs. He could have taken them off a long time ago, and quickly repositioned his thumbs. Do you think this is a game? Gu-chun laughed. Have fine, I'll give you a hint. He paused for half a second before continuing. First, you have to see your target before you can deal with him. Do you understand? Understand my ass. Feng Bujue said. Are you telling me to activate my Inyan eyes? Take your time, I'm leaving. Gu-chun ignored Brother Ju's ridicule. If you can survive, I'll see you in 10 minutes. As he spoke, his voice and footsteps gradually faded away. This isn't good. At this moment, Feng Bujue suddenly returned to his usual calm state. His eyes also became sharp. He really left. He scratched his head. I thought that if I pretended to be panicked, he would give me more hints. Could it be that he saw through me? Brother Ju didn't slow down as he pondered. He quickly walked to the table and placed the lamp on the ground. Then, he picked up the table and brought it to a corner of the room. Then, he brought another chair over and placed it on the table. Feng Bujue stood there and looked at the table and chair in front of him. The height of the table is 2 meters and the height of the chair is 52 centimeters, which adds up to 172 centimeters. With my height of 179 meters, it's 351 centimeters. As long as I stand on my tiptoes and stretch my arms upward, I should be able to touch it. He made a quick estimation, then climbed onto the table and the chair. The table was a square, four-legged table. It was placed against the corner of the wall and was very stable. It couldn't be pushed over even if one wanted to. The surface of the chair was also relatively wide, and the bottom of the chair was relatively stable. Under such conditions, naturally, Feng Bujue could do what he wanted without worry. Soon, Brother Ju removed the video camera from the corner of the ceiling and returned it to the ground. As expected, there's a built-in backup power supply. Once the AC-DC power supply is interrupted, it will automatically switch to battery mode. Feng Bujue fiddled with the video camera a few times, then lifted up a video screen. He held it in front of his eyes like a DV and observed the environment of the room through the camera's lens. There's nothing. He only used a few seconds to look through the entire room, but he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Did I misunderstand? Should I use another method to look? He said to himself. Or is that Chief Gu tricking me? Is there really nothing in this room? His mind was spinning rapidly. After thinking for a few seconds, he felt that the probability of Gu-chun joking with him was relatively low. Moreover, he thought of another method. Looks like I have to turn off the light. Feng Bujue did as he said. He walked back to the center of the room and placed the lamp on the chair that hadn't been moved. Then, he turned off the switch. Click! Following the sound of the lights being turned off, the room became pitch black. In the next second, Feng Bujue turned on the video camera's night vision mode and held it in front of his eyes again. Whoa, there really is something. This time, Brother Ju finally saw something unclean through the camera. In the bright environment, the room looked normal, but in the pitch-black darkness, Feng Bujue saw a huge change in the scenery in front of his eyes. He realized that the 6 walls in the room weren't painted with graffiti. Instead, they were painted with countless charms. And in the middle of the ceiling, there was a huge, pupil-like object embedded horizontally. All the charms seemed to be drawn around this giant, pupil-like object and gradually spread out in all directions until they covered all 6 walls of the room. The so-called evil spirit is inside this pupil-like object. Feng Bujue raised his head and pointed the camera at the ceiling. He muttered, I can see it, and it doesn't look like it has started to act. The problem is, if this thing really starts to act, how should I deal with it? Perhaps even Brother Ju himself didn't realize that his current performance was a bit too calm. This wasn't a virtual world, this was real life. Even those masters in the game, in real life, they were just ordinary people. If they were faced with the situation that Feng Bujue was facing at this moment, they would be trembling in fear and unable to move. Of course, there would be people who would say, Feng Bujue's fear was sealed, that this was normal, right? But I say that's not right. Not having fear doesn't mean that there isn't panic, shock, and other emotions. Brother Ju's calmness was mainly due to his personality. Even if his fear seal was lifted, he would still have the same reaction, ugh. Suddenly, a low groan came from the pupil-like object, interrupting Brother Ju's thoughts. At this moment, a cold feeling suddenly surrounded Feng Bujue. It was as if he had suddenly fallen into an ice cave, and even breathing became abnormally difficult. All the muscles in his body felt stiff and numb. Is this the beginning? Feng Bujue quickly recovered from the momentary shock and muttered in a low voice. In terms of willpower, Feng Bujue was obviously superior to ordinary people. He was able to twist and break his own finger in the middle of a conversation. This was enough to explain a lot. Therefore, in the face of this sudden and terrifying situation, he didn't panic. He immediately made a very constructive action. He turned around and turned on the light. Click! However, this time, when he flipped the switch, the table lamp didn't light up again. Chapter 745. Hey, no matter how unlucky I am, something like this shouldn't have happened. Feng Bujue's first reaction was, could it be that the lamp just happened to malfunction at this time? His second reaction was, or, the moment I turned off the light, the battery inside just happened to run out? While Brother Ju was still wondering why the lamp didn't turn on, the evil spirit in the cocoon had already whispered and tore the cocoon apart. Feng Bujue, who heard the movement, turned around and retreated to the metal door. While observing the movement of the evil spirit through the camera, he used his elbow to knock on the door twice. Hey, Section Chief Gu, the situation doesn't seem right. Are there any further clues? He waited for a few seconds, but no one responded to him. This guy really left. This time, Feng Bujue broke out in a cold sweat. Hoochie. At this time, there was the sound of cloth being torn apart. Feng Bujue turned around and saw that the evil spirit had completely torn the cocoon apart. Its body was hanging upside down. His appearance was extremely terrifying. His head was like a corpse, and his skull was cracked. Strands of corpse oil that emitted a foul stench were dripping down from the gap in his head. His torso was shaped like a pea, presenting a bloated and fat figure. His limbs, however, were emaciated and thin like firewood. This style is quite avant-garde. Feng Bujue held the camera in one hand and aimed at the target, and with the other hand, he grabbed the lamp and prepared to hit the evil spirit with it. When the evil spirit saw Brother Ju, it laughed maliciously. After laughing a few times, it turned over and jumped to the ground, then walked step by step toward Feng Bujue. Huff Tui. When the evil spirit was 2 meters away, Feng Bujue tried the first thing, spit at the guy. This time, it just so happened to fly into the gap in the evil spirit's head. The evil spirit was obviously stunned for a moment. 2 seconds later, he actually spoke. What are you doing? It can actually talk. Feng Bujue muttered in a mocking tone. Nonsense, the evil spirit replied. Ghosts used to be human too, so of course they can talk. He paused for a moment, then asked, I'm asking you a question. What are you doing? I want to see if I can destroy you with my saliva. Feng Bujue replied. Oh, the evil spirit continued. Then try it. How do you feel? Based on my observations, I don't think so. Feng Bujue replied. Not only is it no good, it's also very disgusting. Do you know that? Wraith continued with a stern voice. I'm sorry. Brother Ju thought about it and felt that he was in the wrong, so he apologized. But then he asked another question. All right, since you can talk, I want to confirm with you. Can virgin urine exorcise ghosts? Hearing this, the evil spirit actually took 2 steps back and looked Brother Ju up and down, then replied, no. Okay. Feng Bujue showed a hint of disappointment and shrugged. Also, I can tell you clearly, the evil spirit continued. For someone like you who hasn't even awakened their spiritual sense, it's basically impossible for you to survive from my hands. Oh, can you explain in detail? Feng Bujue still did not give up trying to get information out of the evil spirit. I don't have time, but the evil spirit did not buy it. As he spoke, he had already closed in again. Anyway, when I pull out your soul and fill up my Dharma body, you'll naturally know. Oem Mani Padme Hum. Feng Bujue saw this, hurriedly recited the Sanskrit mantra, and picked up the table lamp and swung it at the evil spirit. After a few months of training, he had already explained the training method to V1. Feng Bujue's physique had changed significantly. Although his basic physical fitness was still not comparable to that of a professional athlete, he was no longer weak like an otaku. Although he was only holding a table lamp, it was still a hard object. If this hit a person's head, it was possible to die on the spot. Oomph. However, in the face of Brother Ju's attack, the evil spirit brother only responded with a sneer. Whoosh! As expected, Brother Ju's full-powered attack missed just like that. Because he used too much force and did not hit the expected point of impact, he suddenly staggered and fell forward. The camera in his other hand also fell to the ground. Can't touch. When Feng Bujue realized that he could not touch his opponent, it was already too late. However, Brother Ju, who lost his balance, did not fall to the ground. His body leaned forward, and he was supported by the evil spirit with one hand, and the position he was holding was his neck. Kapha! The huge force from his throat made Brother Ju's face turn from red to purple in an instant. The next second, the evil spirit took a step forward, grabbed Feng Bujue's neck, lifted him over his head, and pressed him against the wall. You're quite brave, but unfortunately, your body doesn't have enough morality, and you don't have spiritual sense. Breaking into my ghost realm is your fate. Why can he touch me, but I can't touch him? In this situation, Feng Bujue's brain still did not stop thinking, and this guy's grip is too strong. I can't go on like this. My consciousness is starting to blur. Obviously, I can't escape by force. I have to say something quickly, something to make him waver. I have to make him put me down. I have to think of a reason for him to put me down. Feng Bujue. I have to think quickly, before my brain stops working due to lack of oxygen. Hurry. No, I can't speak at all. I will die. At this moment, Feng Bujue entered an extreme realm. This was something he had never experienced in the real world, the feeling of being on the verge of death. What's going on? Suddenly, Brother Ju's eyes saw something. I saw it just a few seconds ago. His vision was still pitch black. Even if there was a little bit of light in the room, he, who had lost the camera, could not see the spirit body. But at this moment, he could clearly see everything in the darkness. The wall covered with talismans, the torn chrysalis, the corpse oil dripping on the ground, and the evil spirit in front of him. Smack! Brother Ju did not know where he got the strength from, but he picked up the table lamp again. He had been holding it in his hand all this time, and smashed it at the evil spirit's face. This time, the evil spirit was hit squarely. He cried out in pain and instinctively let go of the hand that was strangling him. Feng Bujue finally broke free from the evil spirit's grip. When his 2 feet landed on the ground, blood rushed to his head, which made him feel dizzy and on the verge of collapse. But he did not fall. After a series of rapid gasps and coughs, he successfully stabilized his body. The evil spirit who retreated 3 meters away had a slight change in expression. So you have spiritual awareness? Feng Bujue smiled. That evil, crazy, and chilling smile once again returned to his face. Although I'm not sure what spiritual awareness is, I know that, at this moment, I can see the surrounding environment clearly, and I can touch you. Oh, so he just awakened. The evil spirit thought. Thinking of this, he regained some confidence and said to Brother Ju with a sinister smile, Do you think that you can defeat me just because you can see and touch me? According to my observation, your strength is indeed stronger than the average human. Feng Bujue calmly responded, but in terms of speed, I still have the advantage. Moreover, your body shape does not seem to be suitable for fighting. Presumably in the ghost realm, you are just a small fish that can only kill people without spiritual awareness. Humph! Ignorant child, how dare you speak such arrogant words? The evil spirit was obviously provoked by Brother Jew, so he became angry. He immediately roared and pounced on Brother Jew. A small fish is a small fish. Feng Bujue's face was as calm as water. He calmly leaned over and moved. In a flash, he was beside the evil spirit. With a little instigation, he immediately made such a stupid attack that can be seen through at a glance. In that split second, Brother Jew pushed with his hands and tripped the specter. Using the specter's own strength, he pushed the specter to the ground. How dare you? After the evil spirit fell, he was even more furious. He immediately rolled half a circle on the ground, ready to sit up and fight another 300 rounds. Unexpectedly, just as he turned his face, before he could even bend over, a metal folding chair was thrown at his face. Mother asterisk her. How dare you pinch me? You're courting death. You be asterisk starred. Feng Bujue gripped the back of the chair with both of his hands and used an extremely high frequency and strength to hit the demon. With each hit, he would mumble something under his breath, and it echoed the slapping sound that came from the impact. The evil spirit was beaten until he couldn't get up. Not long after, he curled up with his hands on his head and screamed. As for Feng Bujue, even though he saw his opponent showing weakness, he had no intention of stopping. He was still happily beating the evil spirit. Creak! At this moment, the metal door of the room was pushed open from the outside, and the light from the corridor shone in. All right, come out if you're done. Gu Chen's figure appeared at the door once again. Following his appearance, the cold feeling in the room suddenly disappeared. The evil spirit also disappeared without a trace under the illumination of the light. Seeing this, Feng Bujue put down the chair and took a few breaths. After he caught his breath, he stared at Gu Chen at the door and said, "You came at the right time." He only said half a sentence before he picked up the chair again and rushed forward, swinging it at Gu Chen at the door. But, in the next second, Feng Bujue only saw a red light flash in front of his eyes. Then, he heard a ding-ding-dang-dang sound. When he came back to his senses, the metal folding chair in his hand had already turned into dozens of metal pipes and parts that were as long as fingers, falling to the ground one after another. Looking closely, he could see that the edges of these fragments were very neat, as if they had been cut by a sharp blade. Come, let's talk somewhere else. Gu Chen's expression and tone. It was as if nothing had happened. He continued his previous words, "Follow me." After saying that, he put his hands in his pockets and turned around. Feng Bujue was stunned for 5 seconds, and the 2 metal pipes in his hands fell to the ground. All right, then he followed. Chapter 746. Feng Bujue followed Gu Chen silently. The whole process took a minute. During this 1 minute, Brother Jew thought about a lot of things, such as how the chair was cut into pieces, what Chief Gu was going to do next, and the so-called consciousness, ghosts, ghost realm. What exactly were they? A minute later, Gu Chen brought Feng Bujue to the end of the corridor. He casually opened a metal door in front of them and led Brother Jew into another room. The environment of this room was much better than the previous one. At the very least, there were no graffiti on the walls. Furthermore, the area of this room was larger, about 40 square meters. Most importantly, there were 2 fluorescent tubes installed on the ceiling, providing sufficient illumination. When Feng Bujue entered the room, he noticed that, in the middle of the room, there was still a 4-legged wooden table and 2 metal folding chairs. The only difference was that there was no lamp on the table. Sit. When Gu Chen said this word, he had already picked a seat and sat down. Brother Jew didn't stand on ceremony. He quickly walked to the table and sat across from Gu Chen. Let me ask first, there aren't any evil ghosts in this room, right? Don't worry. Guchen replied, "The test is over. You barely passed." "What test?" Feng Bujua narrowed his eyes and asked tentatively. "The Ghostbusters test? Or the 9 subjects test?" He raised 2 possible hypotheses. "Neither." Gu Chun answered calmly. "This is just a test I did out of curiosity. I wanted to see if you could pass it alive." Feng Bujua sneered. "What if I died in the test? Then it proves." Gu Chun replied in a deep voice, "that you're just so. Huh?" Feng Bujua laughed. He didn't comment on Gu Chen's unreasonable explanation. On the contrary, he was very satisfied with Gu Chen's answer. That's King reasonable. When Gu Chen saw his brother Ju's reaction, he smiled and said, "All right, since you've passed the test, everything will be fine." As he spoke, he took out a phone from his shirt pocket and placed it in front of brother Ju. "This is your phone. I say, is it really okay for you to search other people's residences without permission?" At that moment, Feng Bujua was still wearing the blood-stained pajamas that he had been arrested. The sneakers on his feet were the ones that Bao Qing had asked him to wear before he put on the hood. So, the phone before his eyes was undoubtedly something that the people from Jiu Ku had found in his house. Let's put it this way. Guchen leaned back in his chair. It's illegal for you to secretly investigate 9 sections, but it's also legal for us to brazenly raid your home. Feng Bujue was unconvinced. Only the magistrate is allowed to set fires, but the common people are not allowed to light lamps. That's right. Gu Chan thought for half a second, then gave an affirmative answer. This has been a tradition since ancient times. Do you have any complaints? Pretend I didn't say anything. Feng Bujue also thought for half a second and realized that he had nothing to say. Anyway, I've left a number in your phone. If there's a situation, someone will contact you through that number. Guchen quickly brought the topic back on track. Also, you don't have to continue investigating us. I've already compiled all the practical knowledge about the 9 subjects, the ghost hunting world, heaven and hell into a document, and saved it in your phone. Chief Gu, Feng Bujue's expression changed slightly. What do you mean? Do you want me to be your informant too? No, Guchen denied. There's no need for that. He paused for a moment, then said, I just think, since you're so interested in the supernatural things in this world, I might as well help you and let you take fewer detours. Oh, Feng Bujue immediately cast a suspicious look at the other party. Chief Gu, you and I are neither relatives nor friends. We don't even know each other. Furthermore, I'm on your surveillance list. Why are you helping me? Personal reasons. Guchen replied with these 4 words. Feng Bujue muttered. Old Gu. His way of addressing Gu Chun had inexplicably changed. It's impossible between us. He then said such a heartbreaking sentence. Do you think that I'm going to have an unforgettable love at first sight with you? Gu Chun continued. That's right. Feng Bujue glanced at the other party and said, I've already noticed that you're wearing a wedding ring, and the way you're looking at me doesn't have good intentions, Feng Bujue. Gu Chun's expression was the same as usual. If you think that this level of acting is enough to make me complain, then you're sorely mistaken. His tone was still as leisurely as before. I've long since passed the age of complaining to others. Furthermore, compared to my partner back then, the things you've provided me with are still lacking. You've been living a life full of jokes. After Brother Bujue's scheme was exposed, he simply complained to himself. All right, you don't have to think about getting information out of me. Gu Chun stretched his shoulders. I'll let you know what you should know. As for what you shouldn't know, it's mostly things that you won't benefit from knowing. His expression turned serious. When you go back today, pay attention to 2 things. First, you have to help cover up Bao Qing's identity. You can't let anyone find out. Second, now that you've awakened your consciousness, you might see ghosts sometimes. Of course, there aren't that many wandering ghosts in this world. Even if there are, they're gathered in places with heavy yin energy. Don't wander around graveyards or morgues. You might not even see one in a few years. Hey. When Feng Bujue heard this, he said in a very unhappy tone, What if I happen to run into one? You barely leave your house. Where are you going to run into one? Guchen replied lazily. Ghosts are very afraid of the yang energy on living people. Even at night, there will be a kind of aura in places with a lot of people, like the residential area you live in. Unless there's some kind of wrongful case and an earthbound spirit is born, there won't be any ghosts. He took a deep breath. Let's take a step back. Even if a ferocious ghost comes looking for you, and that ghost is at the level of a horror movie's boss, your cat can still kill it with one slap. No, I'm still worried. Feng Bujue continued shamelessly. It's better to rely on yourself than to rely on others. You should teach me a few self-defense moves. His real purpose was finally exposed. The move you used to cut the metal chair into pieces was pretty good. I think it must be the legendary hurricane blade technique, right? Do you have any secret manuals for me to study? First of all, the hurricane blade technique is Tian Boiwang's martial art. It has nothing to do with me. Guchen narrowed his eyes and looked at Feng Bujue. Secondly, with your current level of consciousness, you can only do the most basic spiritual sight and spiritual touch. If you want to learn moves, your spiritual energy is far from enough. He used a more serious tone to remind him. Therefore, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't try anything dangerous. For example, based on your experience in Thriller Paradise, if you try to use body enhancement spell in real life, that's basically suicide. You even know about my in-game skills. At that moment, Feng Bujue felt a chill run down his spine. Communicating with Guchen made him feel like he was walking on thin ice. My department can access the Dream Company's database at any time. Even though we can't see some of the encrypted data, the basic data of a certain in-game character and their actions in the scenario can be easily found. Speaking up to this point, Guchen seemed to have suddenly thought of something. Oh, speaking of which, half an hour ago, I saw something interesting in the latest report. As he spoke, he took out his phone and swiped a few times on the touchscreen. You used a move called Hail Keko, Octagon Triumphant Bird, right? Yes. Is there a problem? Feng Bujue asked. Guchen didn't answer. Instead, he asked, You're interested in the 8 diagrams? I have studied it before. Brother Bujue answered reluctantly. Oh, Guchen answered casually. Then, he pressed a few buttons on his phone. I'll use Bluetooth to send you the Book of Hidden Armor. You can receive it and read it when you're free. Huh? Feng Bujue was stunned. He didn't know how to respond. However, he quickly picked up his phone and turned on the Bluetooth. Guchen continued as if nothing had happened. After you've learned the whole book, you'll naturally be able to deal with ghosts. Chapter 747. In late July, Feng Bujue suddenly stopped logging into the game with the excuse that he was writing in seclusion. This sudden and abnormal action of his naturally caused a huge reaction in his circle of friends. Fortunately, he didn't have many friends. Xiaotan was the easiest to fool. Just like the song said, if you tell a lie twice, he'll take it seriously. And Yuqin was easy to deal with. After all, she hadn't known Brother Ju for a long time. As long as Feng Bujue kept the quality and delivered the manuscript on time, the editor had nothing to say. As for Bao Qing, the relationship between him and Brother Ju was very subtle. When the two met alone, the atmosphere was like an underground gang meeting. When they communicated in a crowded environment, it always felt like they were competing with each other's acting skills. Finally, let's talk about Ruo Yu and Xiaoling. The two of them were obviously not easy to fool. However, Brother Ju soon realized that he didn't need to fool them, because not long after he got a spiritual sense, he found that Ruo Yu and Xiaoling both had spiritual senses. Feng Bujue knew that since he could detect their abilities, they must be able to sense his as well. Therefore, he didn't ask any questions, nor did he explain. This meant that no one should mention anything about spiritual senses. It was up to them to decide when to reveal it. August 4th, 8 o'clock in the morning. Like usual, Feng Bujue went for a 10-kilometer jog before returning home. Phew! After he pushed the door open and entered the house, he let out a long sigh of relief and closed the door behind him. My physical fitness has improved by leaps and bounds recently. If this goes on, I can go out and help the weak. He muttered as he changed out of his shoes and habitually walked to the bathroom. 3 seconds later, just as he turned the corner of the living room, he caught a glimpse of something in the corner of his eyes. Hey! His first reaction was to turn around and question Arthas, who was on the sofa. What happened to my gaming pod? The reason Brother Jew asked that was because in the half an hour that he had been out for his run, the gaming hub that he originally had at home had been replaced with a new one that was bigger in size and had a slightly different design. This is Woody's idea. Arthas stuck out its tongue and licked its lips. I've already gotten rid of the original one and replaced it with a new one, meow. You should have at least asked me beforehand. Fong Buju muttered. There's nothing to ask, Arthas replied. It won't cost a single cent. Standard cabin will be changed to luxury cabin. Moreover, it's a one-stop service of moving, replacing, and installing. You have no reason to refuse. She paused for a moment. Because I know you don't like trouble, so I got it done quickly when you went out for a run, meow. According to what you said, I should praise your service and give you a good review. Fong Bujua narrowed his eyes and continued. That's not necessary. Arthas rubbed her face with her claws and said, giving you the luxury cabin is also to let you play better in the game and perform better in the gambling. She raised her claws and pointed at the gaming pod. As the saying goes, if a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. You're almost level 50, so it's only right to give you some support in terms of hardware, meow. Huh? Fong Bujua laughed. Actually, Woody saw that I haven't been online for a long time, so he used this method to remind me. Yes, Arthas replied. And he had already predicted that you would say this with a smile, so he asked me to pass on this message to you after you finish saying it. Fong Bujua, although you're gifted, your foundation is not right. With your characteristics, when you're practicing the hidden heavenly book of Taoism, you mustn't be rash. Otherwise, you'll run the risk of going mad. For the past half a month, you've become more and more capable. Now, you should slow down your progress so that you can proceed step by step. So, I suggest that you take a 3-day break and level up to level 50 in the game. He. Why do you even have to repeat he? Fong Bujua continued. He was the one who said word for word, so I did it. Meow, Arthas replied. All right, I passed on the message. I'm going back to sleep. Don't bother me, meow meow. As she spoke, she was already yawning, curling up her body and tail. Half an hour passed quickly. Fong Bujua took a shower and ate a self-made, nutritious breakfast. Then, he eagerly lay down in the gaming pod. To be honest, he was still very happy to receive a new pod for free. After all, the interior of the luxury cabin was more spacious and comfortable. It also came with an expensive air filtration system, humidity adjustment system, and temperature control system. Besides, he hadn't been online for a long time. For a more playful, professional writer who liked to collect material, the game itself was also very attractive. Welcome to our company's product. Scanning has begun. Please wait a moment. Scanning completed. Confirmed citizen ID. SH13 **** 313. Name, Fong Bujua. Access device, NL 2055 Luxury Single-Player Gaming Pod. No abnormal external hardware detected. Heart and lung function are normal. Nerve connection program is ready. Please select the access type. Access type is non-sleeping mode. Adjusting. Adjustment complete. Please confirm to load the game or return to the superior option. Program started. Loading the game in 10 seconds. After a familiar voice prompt, Fong Bujua entered the login lobby. As usual, he opened the in-game mailbox first. Since he hadn't logged in for a long time, his mailbox had accumulated a large amount of mail. Thankfully, Brother Jew was used to this. He easily dealt with all the mail that he had received for the past half a month. Okay, let me see. Then, Fong Bujua opened the social tab. Wow, there are quite a lot of people online on a weekday morning. That was a waste of time. Most of his friends were professional gamers. Their job was to play games, so it was normal for them to be online on a weekday morning. I'm the only one online at Underworld Frontline, Brother Jew said. Okay, at that moment, he suddenly realized he was the one who did not focus on his job. Therefore, he decided to play a solo nightmare mode to calm himself down. Considering the fact that Brother Jew's character attributes did not change that much after the last scenario, there was no need to go into detail about it, to prevent it from being a filler. In any case, after he familiarized himself with the controls, he entered the queue for solo survival mode, nightmare mode. Chapter 748. Phone Bujue, Level 48. Please select the game mode that you wish to join. You have selected single-player survival mode, nightmare. Please confirm. Confirmed. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. At that point, Phone Bujue had lost control of his body, and he had sunk into darkness. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. The next second, a calm and steady female voice entered his ears. Download complete. You are currently playing single-player survival mode, nightmare. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance of triggering hidden side missions and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario. Randomly draw 2 puzzle cards. The scenario introduction will be played soon. The game will start after that. Before the announcement ended, the introductory cinematic started. When his vision recovered, the first thing that Phone Bujue saw was a windshield and a pair of moving windshield wipers. At the bottom of the screen, he saw a pair of large hands holding a steering wheel. A first-person perspective. Brother Jew mumbled internally. Looks like I'll have to play a character this time. Hello, Mr. Dave. The narration soon confirmed his speculation. Congratulations, you have stood out from the many candidates and obtained the chance to interview. The narrator's voice sounded rather old, but there was a hint of intimacy in his solemn tone. Is this the way to the interview? Phone Bujue thought. As the postmaster of Otaku Town's post office, I sincerely hope that you will be one of us. I thought this was Silent Hill. Phone Bujue looked at the white fog before the car. The fog in your town is ridiculously thick. Even with the headlights on, I can only see 5 meters away. Please be at my office before 9 o'clock a.m. This interview may take an entire day. I hope you're mentally and physically prepared. Hey, even an interview with the MIB won't take a whole day, right? Brother Jew thought. Are you the Earth Defense Force with a post office sign? The post office is located at the northern side of the town square. Please don't be late. Finally, good luck. The introduction of the scenario was not long, so it ended there. At the same second, Phone Bujue gained control of his body. He eased off the gas pedal and slowed down. He observed the character that he was playing through the rear-view mirror. The man called Dave looked to be in his 30s. He had a common face and short, clean hair. He was dressed normally, a dark-colored long-sleeved checkered shirt with a light-colored leather jacket, classic jeans, and white sneakers. There is no wedding ring, and there is no sign of a ring. Phone Bujue observed the details of himself as he said, from the calluses on his fingers and palms, this person is left-handed. He glanced at his right hand, which was wearing a cheap watch. Brown leather strap, normal metal, and glass case. Both sides and the strap are covered in scratches. Almost at the same time, he made the corresponding deduction. Based on the calluses on his hands and the thickness of his palms, Dave is most likely a mechanic who works in decoration or car maintenance. Like most people, he would remember to take off his watch when he was working, but he did not consider the consequences of putting his watch together with his keys and change. Of course, he might have already considered it, but because the watch is cheap, he did not care. This was one of Brother Jew's habits. Even though the information he obtained had nothing to do with the development of the scenario, it was a good way to pass the time. I think we're here. Before Phone Bujue had the chance to check Dave's pocket, a bridge appeared in front of them. There was a large street sign next to the bridge, and it said, Otaku Town welcomes you. Next to the sign was a stone block, and the block had the number 40T painted on it. It was probably referring to the weight limit for the vehicles crossing the bridge. When Brother Jew drove the car onto the bridge, the system audio once again appeared in his ears. Main quest has been triggered. Is this the end of the easy preparation time? Phone Bujue mumbled darkly. He did not check the mission details immediately. Instead, he gripped the steering wheel tightly and slowed down. He paid close attention to his surroundings. After driving carefully for 300 meters, he successfully crossed the bridge and arrived at the entrance to the town. The asphalt road stopped here. The roads inside the town were mostly made of pebbles and mud, and there was very little cement. Creak, creak. Just as the car left the road, a very bad sound came from the front of the car under the hood. Several seconds later, a puff of white smoke came out from it. Such a perfect timing to stop the car. Feng Bujue smiled bitterly. I am speechless. Since the car had stopped, he sat in the driver's seat and rummaged through his belongings. There was a ballpoint pen with a spring attached to Dave's shirt pocket, and there was an unopened pack of chewing gum inside the pocket. There was a wallet in the left pocket of his jeans, and there was a Dart Club membership card, a credit card, a driver's license, and 3 $2 bills, 4 $5 bills, and 3 $20 bills. The total was $86 US. In his right pocket, there were 7 quarters and a set of keys. The pockets inside and outside the leather jacket are empty. It seems like he had considered the possibility of taking off his jacket when he left the house. When Feng Bujue was inspecting his belongings, he did not forget to further analyze this Dave. He doesn't carry any cigarettes on him, and from his teeth and fingers, he doesn't look like a smoker. Then he opened all the storage spaces in the car and looked around. There are no accumulated tickets, no junk food wrappers, and no adult magazines. He turned to look at the back seat. There are no tissues or handkerchiefs in the car or on him, and the cuffs of his sleeves are relatively clean. With that in mind, Brother Ju paused for 2 seconds before concluding. His body is completely healthy, and he does not even have the common rhinitis and pharyngitis. His physical fitness is excellent, and his IQ and self-control are higher than the average Caucasian. His diet is balanced, and he does not have the habit of staying up late. No bad habits. He laughed. There must be a conspiracy behind giving me such an athletic body. It was then that he called out the game menu. As expected, the skill bar and inventory slots were locked, and the psionic weapon was also unusable. The main mission in the mission bar also gave Brother Ju a sense of danger. Obtain the approval of the ghost postman and become the new postman of Otaku Town. So, the person who called me here for the interview is a ghost. Facing this kind of supernatural setting, Feng Bujue was already used to it. After he finished reading the mission description, he took Dave's mobile phone from the car charger. Could this be the legendary Nokia 3310? He randomly pressed a key and looked at the date and time on the phone. December 25th, 2002, 8:25 a.m. Christmas morning. Then, Brother Ju unlocked the phone's keyboard. Normally, the phone would be unlocked by pressing the star button. He wanted to find as much useful information as he could. Unfortunately, the phone's text messages and phone records were blank. In the era of traditional mobile phones, many people had the habit of deleting the records after sending text messages or making phone calls. The memo was also empty. There were records in the phone book, but they seemed to be very common contacts, such as Dad, Mom, Uncle Mark, Auntie Daisy, Williams, Maggie, and so on. The most important thing was that the phone was not in the service area. So, even if Feng Bujue wanted to make a call, he could not make it. Okay, Brother Ju only fiddled with the phone for 3 minutes before he put it into the outside pocket of his leather jacket. At least this thing can be used as a weapon. As he spoke, he unfastened his seatbelt and pushed the door open. Chapter 749. The fog in the small town was thinner than on the highway, but it was still shrouded in fog. Once he got out of the car, Feng Bujue was enveloped by a gust of cold air. The visibility has increased to 20 meters, but the temperature is only 2 degrees, and the humidity is ridiculously high. Before Brother Ju closed the door, he already missed the air conditioning in the car. If this scenario is to calculate the stamina points based on the physical sense of the character, in this whole day, I will need to drink, eat, and rest in moderation, or else my stamina will be depleted. While he was contemplating these questions, Feng Bujue left the car and walked toward a gas station about 10 meters away. There were 2 reasons why he did not attempt to fix the car himself. 1, he did not know how to do it. 2, he believed this breakdown was arranged by the system, so it would not be fixed in a short amount of time. Therefore, he decided to seek professional help. The gas station is built at the entrance of the town that is quite convenient. For example, the boss of the gas station said that to fix my car, he needed 4 parts, a B, C, and D, but he only had 2 of them. Since there were too few workers at the gas station, he gave me the quest to go to point E and point F in town to buy them myself. When I found the boss of point E and point F, they asked me to help them collect the 4 parts, G, H, I, and J, or else they wouldn't sell me the parts. And the 4 parts are scattered around the 4 corners of the town, K, L, M, and N, and each area has a corresponding mini-boss that needs to be defeated. So, the 4 parts are scattered around the 4 corners of the town, K, L, M, and N, and each area has a corresponding mini-boss that needs to be defeated. So, when I found the boss of point E and point F, they asked me to help them collect the 4 parts, G, H, I, and J, or else they wouldn't sell me the parts. And the 4 parts are scattered around the 4 corners of the town, K, L, M, and N, and each area has a corresponding mini-boss to defeat. Just as Brother Ju used his Zelda-style logic to figure out the upcoming plot, suddenly, quick, go back. Vaguely, he heard the sound of voices. It was a woman's voice. It sounded ethereal and distant, but the tone was firm. Who is it? Brother Ju reacted quickly. He whipped his head around, but he did not see a shadow. Follow the road back to the other side of the bridge. While it's still not too late. A few seconds later, the voice drifted over from the fog in the distance again. However, only the voice could be heard, and the person could not be seen. Uft. Do you think I don't want to? Feng Bujue complained in his heart. If the main mission is escape from Urtaka town, I'll do it even if you don't tell me. He did not ignore the voice. Who are you? He shouted in the direction of the voice. Why do you want me to leave? Why do you say it's not too late? Rumble. At this moment, a violent collapse came from the other side of the bridge, instantly drowning out Brother Ju's shout. Feng Buju's mouth twitched. I see. Even though it was obvious that this was going to happen, as a careful person, Brother Ju still chose to go and confirm the situation with his own eyes. He jogged back in the direction he had come from. He passed by the broken-down car, walked out of the town entrance, and returned to the road. He ran for another few dozen meters. Then, the broken bridge appeared in front of him. The fault was about 8 meters wide. Obviously, it wasn't a distance that an ordinary human could jump over. Perhaps they could find a ladder that was more than 10 meters long and put on the top. However, it was still unknown whether they could find such a tool in this small town. This is not a good idea. Brother Ju looked at the deep valley under the bridge. If this is the only way to connect the town to the outside world, then there's no way I can get out. It's too late. Suddenly, the ethereal female voice spoke again. Brother Ju looked in the direction of the voice. Finally, he saw a blurry figure on the other side of the broken bridge. Is there something wrong with this town? Feng Buju immediately shouted at the figure. He didn't repeat the question because he knew, whether it was in a horror movie or a horror game, this type of NPC had a few distinguishing characteristics. 1. They only spoke half of their words and liked to answer irrelevant questions. 2. When you asked a critical question, they would immediately go deaf or disappear, but when you asked an ambiguous or meaningless question, they would be able to hear you again. 3. They would only approach you when you were near death or unconscious. And when you were awake, they wouldn't even let you see their true faces. 4. They would only offer you substantial help when you were trapped, injured, or in a desperate situation. And 5. They could usually come up with plausible and unverifiable explanations for these 4 behaviors. In conclusion, this was a group of people who deserved a beating. Now, you only have 2 choices left. As expected, the figure ignored Brother Ju's question and said to herself, first, become a postman. Second, become one of them. Then, before Feng Buju could respond, her figure disappeared into the fog. Hey. Feng Buju knew that the figure would most likely ignore him. So, he just called out to her twice. Then, he turned around and sighed. Sigh. The purpose of this plot is to give me a few suspense that can't be solved in a short period of time. But in the next second, a smile appeared on his face. I like it. As he thought about this, he took a step forward and headed back to the town. In less than a minute, he was back in front of the gas station. Even if this kind of gas station built in a small town doesn't need to be open 24 hours a day. Brother Jew looked at the empty parking lot and the shutter door in front of the gas station. He said helplessly, "But it's already 8:30 in the morning. It doesn't make sense that the gas station is still closed." That was true, but he couldn't change the fact in front of him. In other words, looking for someone to repair the car. I'm overthinking it. Brother Jew rubbed his chin and thought. The plot arrangement here is fixed. Abandon the car that is broken down and go straight to the destination. Thinking of this, he quickly turned around and walked a few steps. He came to the sign outside the gas station. In fact, he had already noticed this sign. Although the pattern and handwriting on it were mostly covered by oil, he could vaguely see that this should be a map of Otaku Town. This can't be a coincidence. Fon Bujue carefully observed the visible part of the sign. The road from the entrance of the town to the town square is basically clear, but the other places are basically invisible. It only took him 10 seconds to use the graphic memory method to clearly engrave the pattern on the sign in his memory. Is this telling me not to wander around before arriving at the post office? Well, after all, we have to arrive before 9 o'clock in the morning, so there's not much time. If there's any trouble on the way, it's hard to say. I'll just follow the main plot first, Brother Jew said as he stepped on the main road next to him. Chapter 750. Even though the roads in the town were paved with pebbles and sand, they were generally smooth. For Brother Jew, who was wearing sneakers, it did not take too much energy to walk on these roads. However, the distance was still there, and Brother Jew's speculation of reducing stamina points based on the character's body was not wrong. Therefore, he still had to allocate his stamina points reasonably to avoid unnecessary waste. The actual distance is further than I thought. Fon Bujue walked for almost 20 minutes, but he still had not reached the town square. This forced him to pick up his pace. Plus, there is not a single person on the road, and the shops along the street are all closed. He could not help but think, this can't be a ghost town, right? Rustle, rustle, rustle. Just as Brother Jew was thinking, a rhythmic rustling sound came from the fog in front of him. The sound came from afar, and it was getting closer at a fast speed. What the hell is that? Brother Jew heard the sound and stopped in alarm. Without thinking, he reached his right hand into his pocket and grabbed his phone, ready to face the monster. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sound was getting closer, but there was still no one in sight. Ring, ring, ring. Suddenly, a few crisp ringtones entered Brother Jew's ears. The sound came from the same direction as the rustling sound. At that moment, Fon Bujue seemed to have noticed something. He looked down and looked at the ground. 2 seconds later, he squinted his eyes and said, F***CK me. It really is a bicycle. Ring, ring, ring. Before he could finish, the ringtone rang again. This time, the sound was even closer. It was almost right in front of him. Brother Jew reacted in time. He immediately dodged to the side and jumped a few steps away. Then, he saw a trail made by a bicycle tire passing by where he had just been standing. What the hell? Fon Bujue turned to look at the air and said in a low voice, Invisible. Out of the instinct of a detective, okay, I knew he was a mystery writer, he immediately took a few steps forward and squatted down to check the tire tracks. He mumbled to himself, the pattern on the tire tracks has been smoothed out. It is obvious that it has been used for a long time. Judging from the depth of the tire tracks and the sound that the bike made, it should be an old-fashioned metal bicycle with a chain attached to it. There should be a heavy person riding on it, or a ghost. He caressed his lower lip and mumbled, the sound of the chain rolling is very smooth, and the other parts of the bike don't make any sound. This means that although the bike is often used, it is well maintained. As he thought about it, Fon Bujue suddenly slapped his forehead. I'm addicted to it. He raised his wrist and looked at his watch. TSK. If I don't hurry up, I won't be able to catch up. According to the request of the postmaster in the introductory cinematic, the player needed to arrive at his office before 9 a.m. And now, it was already 8:52 a.m. Brother Bujue had not even seen the shadow of the postmaster yet. So I still need to run. He quickly stood up and started to run. After all, there was no one on the street, and there were no cars. Other than the invisible bicycle that he had encountered earlier, he was not afraid of running into anything. Speaking of which, the current main mission, obtain the approval of the ghost postmaster and become the new postmaster of Otaku Town, does not include a time requirement. As Fong Bujue ran, he thought to himself, "It is just that the postmaster told me to arrive before 9 a.m. In other words, even if I arrive after 9 a.m., the main mission might not fail. But the direction of the plot and the difficulty of the scenario might change because of that." The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was best not to be late. 4 minutes later, finally, after running for a long time, Fong Bujue saw a circular square appear before his eyes. The surface of Otaku Square was paved with cement, and only a small part of it was paved with stone bricks. There was a plain-looking fountain in the middle of the square, but the water in the fountain had already dried up. The buildings around the square were relatively large, and most of them were public facilities such as the police station, fire station, hospital, and so on. Brother Ju ran to the north without stopping. After all, he could still find the north. Soon, he saw the sign for the post office. 2 stories, covering an area of about 300 square meters. Fong Bujue thought to himself as he rushed to the entrance of the post office. The worst possibility is there is no floor plan and there is no one for me to ask for directions. I have to find the location of the postmaster's office on my own in 3 minutes. With that in mind, he pushed open the thick glass door in front of him. Very good. Once Brother Ju walked through the door, that was the first thing he said, because he realized the first floor of the post office was the lobby. Other than a service desk on the right side of the entrance, there was only a row of windows for various services. Is it there? His eyes scanned quickly and instantly stopped at the staircase that led to the second floor. There was a sign next to the stairs. The sign said, "Office area, unauthorized persons not allowed." This was a relatively obvious hint. As he ran to the stairs, Fong Bujue took the time to look at the time. 8:58. Break room, security room, finance office, toilet. Fong Bujue raced up the stairs to the second floor. Finally, at 8:59:40, he reached the door to the last room at the end of the corridor. The director's office. He mumbled to himself as he looked at the sign on the door. Then he lowered his head to look at his watch. Phew! Only 10 seconds left. That was close. Knock, knock, knock. While looking at his watch, his left hand had already started to knock on the door. "Please come in." A voice came from the other side of the door. It was the same voice as the opening cinematic. When Fong Bujue heard this, he took a deep breath and wiped the sweat off his forehead. He then grabbed the doorknob and pushed open the door in front of him. The furnishings in the room were very ordinary. In addition to the desk and chairs, there were a few filing cabinets, a glass cabinet, 2 bonsai plants, and 2 flags. Brother Ju could recognize that the side with the stars and stripes was the American flag, but he had no idea what the other side was. However, normally speaking, that should be the flag of the small town or the flag of the state they were in. I have to say, from the very beginning, you have left me with a very bad impression, Mr. Dave. Before Brother Ju could say anything, the man who sat behind the table said something that did not sound good to Brother Ju. It was an old man wearing a plaid suit and black-rimmed round glasses. He looked to be over 60 years old, but his eyes were still bright and his back was straight. "Do you have any opinions about my clothes or hairstyle?" "Sir." Fong Bujue was not the kind of person who would be at a loss when faced with an unexpected situation. After hearing the inexplicable criticism, he calmly asked a question and closed the door behind him. "No, I am very tolerant of the appearance of my employees." The director replied, "I only have one requirement, and that is to be punctual." When he said the last 2 words, he deliberately emphasized them. "The moment I knocked on your door, it was 8:59:45. Fong Bujue fearlessly looked into the director's eyes and replied, "This is not over the time you specified, right?" "I see." The director raised his hand and showed his watch to Brother Ju. "Your watch is 3 minutes late." "What?" Fong Bujue's eyes changed slightly, No way. He immediately took out his phone from his pocket and pressed it. That's right. My watch and the time on my phone are the same. Both are 3 minutes late. The director interrupted Brother Jew. Fong Bujia narrowed his eyes and looked at the old man in front of him. Is it possible that the director's watch? Impossible. Before Brother Jew could say 3 minutes late, the director directly denied his hypothesis. Okay. 2 seconds later, Fong Bujia straightened his face. I was wrong. Brother Jew was also a reasonable person. He knew that in certain situations, the facts were not important, but the attitude was. A leader is a leader. Even if he doesn't know what to do, you should try not to correct or contradict him. Otherwise, you will be asking for trouble. Of course, the kind of good leader who promoted you because you embarrassed him also exists. If you feel that you're lucky enough to meet such a person, you might as well give it a try. Just don't blame me if you're killed by him. No, you are right. Unexpectedly, in the next second, the director's attitude took a 180-degree turn. This time, Fong Bujia was really stunned. My watch is indeed 3 minutes late, and I know this, the director continued. The reason why I wronged you is because I want to see, in the face of pressure, will you compromise to power or stick to the truth? You don't have to go to this extent. Fong Bujia stared at the director with his dead fish eyes and replied, just take it that I respect the elders. Can I go easy on you? Do you think I'm that old? The director followed Brother Jew's lead and tossed out another question that was hard to answer. Yes, Fong Bujia replied straightforwardly. Since the director wanted to hear the truth, he would tell him the truth. Whether it was unpleasant or not was another matter. I think if I seriously argued with you, you are likely to burst a blood vessel and die suddenly, so I admitted my mistake. Very good. The director slammed the table and stood up. His action made Fong Bujia instinctively take half a step back. For a moment, Brother Jew thought that this old man wanted to flip over the table and beat him up. Let's get to know each other. The director straightened his back and extended his right hand. I am the director of Otaku Town Post Office, Norman Nelson. Nice to meet you, Mr. Nelson. Fong Bujia hesitated for half a second before extending his hand. Call me Norman. Thank you. At this moment, a kind smile appeared on Nelson's face. Nice to meet you, Norman. Fong Bujia also replied with a smile. Although on the surface, Brother Jew did not stop observing and analyzing this NPC. A man who is very good at using words and expressions. When he is serious, he is very charismatic. When he is friendly, he is very strong. When he shakes hands, his strength is stronger than mine. These are all typical characteristics of a politician. His eyes moved up and down the man's body. The collar, the cuffs, and the hands all show that he once had a military background. The longer he studied the man, the more details he could glean. His hair is immaculate, and his beard is well trimmed. This shows that he cares about his appearance. The third button of his shirt has been mended, and there are traces of mending on his elbows. This shows that he is a thrifty person. There are traces of a ring on his left ring finger, but it is gone now. Is he divorced? Or is he a widower? A series of thoughts flashed through his mind, and it only took a few seconds. After the two shook hands, Nelson said, Mr. Dave, as you can see, I like people who are straightforward. As he spoke, he sat down again and raised his hand to signal Brother Jew to sit on a chair on the other side of the desk. With me here, you don't have to be afraid of offending people with your words, and you don't have to worry about your appearance. He paused. You just need to remember 2 words. 1, punctuality, and 2, determination. It sounds like I passed the interview? Fong Bujia asked tentatively. Ha! Passed. Ha ha! Nelson laughed. Far from it, Mr. Dave. He opened the drawer before him and took out a stack of envelopes. My department's philosophy is, practice is the only standard to test our employees. Why does that sound so familiar? Fong Bujia grumbled. Nelson ignored him and continued. Whether you will be officially hired by my department will depend on your performance today. He pushed the stack of envelopes before Brother Jew and said, This is your mission for today. Side mission has been triggered. Just as Nelson finished, the system audio chimed. Phone Bujua immediately opened the game menu. He glanced at the mission tab and saw the new mission. Deliver all the letters before midnight. Current progress, 0/13. Since it's a side mission, it means that it doesn't matter if you don't do it. Brother Jew thought to himself. To put it simply, if you deliver the letters before midnight, there will be an extra reward. If you don't deliver the letters before midnight, at least you won't fail the mission. This is a map of Otaku Town. After a few seconds, Nelson took out a mini map that was 20 by 40 centimeters from the drawer and placed it on the table. Also a work manual. He took out a small booklet that was not too thick. And your bicycle key. This was probably the last item because he closed the drawer after he took it out. Exit from the back door and you'll reach the bike shed. The satchel for the envelopes is in the bicycle pocket, since you are still not an official employee of our bureau. So, today, you will have to wear a casual outfit to deliver the letter. He paused for 2 seconds and looked at Brother Jew's face. Is there any other problem? Mr. Dave. Chapter 751. Phone Bujua had a lot of questions. For example, why didn't he see a single person on his way here? Why were all the shops in town closed? Also, what was the invisible bicycle on the road? Could that be the so-called phantom postman? In addition to the above, there was also the identity of the mysterious figure, the reason for the bridge collapse, etc. None of the mysteries surrounding this small town had been solved yet, and there were no clues at all. I do want to ask. Phone Bujua thought for a few seconds and said, "What? Knock, knock, knock." Just as he was about to ask the question, 3 knocks on the door interrupted him. Oh, I almost forgot. Nelson raised his eyebrows and said to Phone Bujua, "Other than you, I have another interview today." After that, he immediately raised his voice and shouted in the direction of the door, "Please come in." A few seconds later, the person outside the door turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. Phone Bujua turned his head and looked at the door. He saw a short man walked in. He looked to be about 35 years old. He had brown curly hair and a pair of shrewd blue eyes. He was wearing a dark blue suit, polished leather shoes, and a felt hat on his head. It was obvious that this interviewee was much more meticulous than Dave in terms of clothing. Hello, sir, I'm here to bang. Click. Before he could finish his sentence, a double-barreled shotgun blew his head off. Blood and brain matter splattered on the corridor walls, and the body fell toward the door. What the F***CK? Phone Bujua immediately cursed in his mind. First of all, this happened too suddenly. Second of all, the gunshot made him temporarily deaf in his right ear. You. Too late. Here. Come. After Director Nelson killed the man, he shouted at the body a few meters away. Asshole. So this is what happens when you're late. Brother Jew silently turned his head and looked at Nelson. He thought to himself, when and where did this guy get the gun? Sorry, I hate people who aren't punctual, you know that. After Nelson killed the man and screamed at the body, he put down the gun and hid it behind the chair. It was then that Brother Jew realized the gun had been hidden behind the back of Narson's chair. Where were we? Narson sat down again and adjusted the collar of his suit. Oh, by the way, have I ever told you that I hate people who like to pry into things? Huh? At that moment, Phone Bujua adjusted his facial muscles and successfully revealed a retarded smile. Director, it's getting late. I need to go deliver the letter. He swept the things on the table into his arms and turned to leave. Wait a minute. Nelson suddenly called after Brother Jew. Phone Bujua's cold sweat slid down his face. His body tensed as he slowly turned around. Is there anything else? Of course, Nelson said. He took out a card from the inside pocket of his suit. Then he picked up the fountain pen on the table, wrote something on it, and stamped it. You have to take this temporary worker's ID with you, or else the townspeople will refuse to accept your letter. Understood. Brother Jew sighed in relief. He walked back to the table and accepted the card. Name, temporary worker's ID for Otaku Town Post Office type. Plot item quality. Normal function. Prove your identity as a postman can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. This card is only valid for 24 hours. If you accidentally lose the ID, you can come back and ask me to sign a new one for you, Nelson said. But this is the only free one, understood? Understood. Fong Bujua nodded. Okay then. I wish you good luck, Mr. Dave. After saying that, Nelson lowered his head and started to deal with the paper documents that were left on the table. Obviously, this part of the plot had come to an end. Fong Bujua put the things away and immediately ran out. But before he left, he did not forget to play a trick. He closed the door behind him. After closing the door, Brother Jew did not say anything and jumped toward the dead body with its head blown off. At that moment, if the phrase that appears in your mind is "do it while it's still hot," please consult a psychiatrist or turn yourself into the police. This man is a grown man, and he didn't bring his wallet with him when he was outside. Fong Bujua used a familiar hand to flip through the man's pockets. You are Alan Haber, a fictional character from 2.5 Men. Due to various reasons, you are very poor, and because of that, you have become stingy and have lost your moral integrity. To avoid paying the bill, you would purposely not bring your wallet when you go out on dates. Is that so? In the end, he only found 3 things on the man's body: a seasoning bottle filled with salt. It looked like it had been stolen from a restaurant, a $5 bill, and a wooden pencil that only had a small piece left. In a way, I feel sorry for this man. Fong Bujua stood up after searching the body. He doesn't look that poor. He placed the items in his pocket and then glanced at the burnt felt hat that was stained with blood. Sigh, I guess I'll pass. The hat did look good, and it must have been more expensive than all the other belongings of the man combined. It should have been something he used to keep up appearances. Unfortunately, it was worthless now. I can't find anything that can prove his identity, Fong Bujua thought as he walked down the corridor. I can't confirm whether he is a resident of this town or an outsider. He walked down the stairs and quickly returned to the lobby on the first floor of the post office. If he is not a resident of Oteko Town, then the problem is the bridge is broken. So how did he get in? His mind was unfolding like a spider web, constantly deducing various possibilities. Excluding the low probability hypothesis of parachuting, there are probably 2 possibilities. 1. There is more than one way to connect this town to the outside world. 2. He entered the town earlier than me, but somehow he was 10 minutes late. While he was thinking, he found the exit that led to the back door of the post office and walked over. The shadow that gave me the hint earlier said that if the bridge is broken, we won't be able to leave. He continued to think. Assuming that she was telling the truth, then, using the second scenario as the basis, how did the man in the felt hat, Brother Jew gave him a random code name, come to Otaka Town? How long ago did he come here? If he also drove in from the bridge this morning and arrived earlier than me, then I should have seen his car on my way here. Even if I didn't see him, I should have seen his car. Brother Jew had already walked out from the back door of the post office. The entire backyard of the post office was a huge bicycle shed. At that moment, there was only one bicycle parked in the shed. Taking all the choices on this line of reasoning, the one with the highest probability is the man in the felt hat is not a resident of this town. He did not enter the town from another entrance, and he did not arrive this morning. When Fong Bujua came to the side of the bicycle, he was still mumbling to himself. The conclusion is he arrived at the town yesterday or earlier to prepare for today's interview. But this morning, something happened to him, causing him to be a few minutes late. Phew! He unlocked the bicycle and exhaled. Perhaps he stayed at the hotel last night. When he woke up this morning, he found that his wallet was missing. He searched for it for a long time, but couldn't find it. His car keys were also in his wallet. Seeing that he was running out of time, he could only run here, but in the end, he was still late. After coming to this seemingly reasonable conclusion, he stopped thinking about the clue of the felt hat man and left a message in his mind. If conditions permit, go to the hotel and investigate. Maybe you can get clues of the other party's identity or a working car. After doing all that, Brother Jew's attention moved to the few items that he was holding. First, the 13 letters item name. Letters addressed to Ortical town type. Plot item quality. Normal function. Unknown can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. Most of the information on the letter is blurry, and there is no stamp on the letter. The only thing that can be identified is the addressee's address: Orticle Town, Maine, 1st Street, number 3. This description came from the letter at the top of the stack. The contents of the other 12 letters were basically the same. The only difference was the address in the remark. Actually, it was fine to ignore the item description because it was written on the envelope as well. In order to avoid confusion, I won't list the descriptions of the 12 letters one by one. I'll just list the different parts of the addresses. The second letter, 2nd Street, number 9. The third letter, 3rd Street, number 7. The fourth letter, 4th Street, number 10. The fifth letter, 5th Street, number 3. The sixth letter, 6th Street, number 9. The seventh letter, 7th Street, number 7. The eighth letter, 8th Street, number 1. The ninth letter, 9th Street, number 3. The 10th letter, 10th Street, number 9. The 11th letter, 11th Street, number 7. The 12th letter, 12th Street, number 1. The 13th letter, 13th Street, number 3. Maine, huh? After Fong Bujue read the addresses of the 13 letters, his first reaction was to mock them. This script is written from the memory of Stephen King, who wrote most of his stories in Maine, right? As he spoke, he had already put the stack of envelopes into his bicycle bag. Then, he took out the mini-map and used 3 minutes to memorize it in his mind. Finally, he picked up the workbook given to him by Commissioner Nelson and placed it before his eyes. Item name: Orticle Town Postman Workbook Type. Plot: Item Quality: Normal Function. It records the code of conduct for the postman in Orticle Town and some necessary knowledge. Can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. I am not a calculative person. My requirement is very simple: punctuality and determination. Norman Nelson. You are indeed not a petty person. Fong Bujua looked at the item description and chuckled. You are a mad old man who kills without blinking an eye. Then he got on a bicycle. With one hand on the wheel and the other holding the workbook, he rode out of the backyard of the post office. Brother Jew was a multitasker, so he thought he could read the workbook while riding the bicycle. That way, he could combine the time he needed to travel and the time he had set. After all, the streets of the town were empty. He only needed to look at the road from the corner of his eyes and make sure he did not fall into the ditch. Riding a bike in winter without gloves sure is king cold. After Fong Bujue rode the bike to the street, he took in a few deep breaths of the humid air. He felt refreshed and chilled to the bone. So, he decided to sing a song to warm himself up. The first fog of 2002, it came later than usual. Chapter 752. Fong Bujue hummed a song. After riding for less than 20 meters, he flipped open the Orticle Town Postman Manual with one hand. Then, thankfully, his singing stopped. This manual is compiled and organized by Norman Nelson. If you have any questions, please come to my office to talk to me in private. Fong Bujue read out the sentence printed on the first page of the manual. He laughed dryly and turned the page. As you can see, this manual is very thin. To save on printing costs, I removed the table of contents. That was the content on the second page. Hey, that sentence of yours took up an entire page. Replace this paragraph with a table of contents. What's the difference in cost? Fong Bujue complained as he turned the manual to the third page. On this page, there was indeed a lot of substantive content. The title at the top read, The Postman's Rules. Below that were a few relevant rules. 1. The postman of this town must carry the relevant documents with them when they work. If they deliver without a document, they will be responsible for the consequences. 2. Punctuality is our basic rule. Please deliver the letter and parcel before the deadline. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. 3. Determination is very important. No matter what kind of dangerous situation you face, you must not waver. You must have the recipient accept the letter. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. 4. Bicycles are our partners. We have to treat them like family. If you cause serious damage to the bicycles at the post office, you will be responsible for the consequences. Consequences at your own risk. 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 Feng Bujue scanned the list, and after every item, they were all the same. Are you sure the meaning behind these words is not shoot you? He thought about it. Speaking of which, I've been to the post office, and other than Narsen, I didn't see a single worker. Could it be that all the workers have been shot by him? He thought about it again. Wait a minute. Not only the post office, the streets and alleys of this town are all empty. Just as Brother Jew was lost in his thoughts, he heard a ringing sound coming from behind him. Ding-ling-ling again. With his previous experience, Feng Bujue naturally knew where the sound came from. He immediately turned to the source of the sound, and as he expected, he saw the tire print of a bicycle that was heading his way. "Hey, Brother Jew, how are you?" Brother Jew put away the workbook and grabbed the handlebars with both hands. After some adjustments, he came to the side of the invisible bicycle and moved parallel to it. "Can you hear me?" He attempted to communicate with the invisible cyclist through words. However, what happened in the next second shocked Feng Bujue deeply. At that moment, Feng Bujue only saw a white light flash in front of his eyes. Then, he heard a piercing sound. By the time he regained his senses, he had already fallen to the ground along with the carriage, and his entire body was emitting a faint burnt smell. What's the situation? Brother Jew sat up with a confused expression. He wanted to find the man's location again, but by then, the tire had already disappeared. Even the sound of the bicycle chain could no longer be heard. He looked at the game menu again and realized that his life points had dropped by 50% in one go. The only good thing was that there were no wounds or lasting debuffs left behind. I just greeted him and he shocked me with a stun baton? Feng Bujue was confused. Talking to him will trigger an attack. He sat for a minute, and after making sure that his body was fine, he stood up again. Who the hell is this guy? He patted the dirt off his body gloomily and picked up the bicycle. If he is the Phantom Postman, then my main mission seems to be going to be difficult. With that in mind, something crossed Feng Bujue's eyes. Could it be? He took out the workbook from his pocket again and flipped through a few pages. Then he laughed. There really is. Brother Jew flipped to the chapter with the title, About the Phantom Postman. 1. Do not talk about the Phantom Postman. 2. Do not talk about the Phantom Postman. 3. Do not talk about the Phantom Postman. Those were the first 3 rules of the chapter. Hey, how many times do I have to play the Fight Club gag before I'm satisfied? Feng Bujue scanned through the first 3 lines and continued to read. 4. The Phantom Postman is a legendary employee at the Otaku Post Office. He has maintained a record of no absences, no returns, and no delays for 15 years. Is it because he's a ghost? Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes. 5. The Phantom Postman is always on the move. I can see that. Feng Bujue complained as he read through the workbook. 6. Because the Phantom Postman is always on the move, please do not disturb him or suffer the consequences. The consequences are that you lose half of your HP if you say hello, Brother Jew said as he flipped to the next page. 7. If you want to communicate with the Phantom Postman, please write down the content on paper and send it as a letter to the abandoned mailbox next to the graveyard in the north of the town. Damn, how do you know this kind of thing? Is this the conclusion of being electrocuted countless times? Feng Bujue asked. Wait, this workbook was written by Narsen. He should know something. His expression changed slightly. But this old guy is good at shooting, and he's ruthless. I feel that it's a bit difficult to get information from him. 8. Special reminder. The Phantom Postman's spiritual shock cannot be isolated by insulators. If you want to wear an insulated suit to challenge him, I suggest you save it. Very well, I can save it. Feng Bujue had indeed come up with such a plan, but after reading the 8th rule, this plan did not exist. 9. Remember, the Phantom Postman does not need your help or sympathy. Everything he does is voluntary. If you have any opinions about this, you can come to the director's office to seek my response. Brother Jew instantly smelled the scent of a conspiracy from this 9th and also the last one. This one feels like it's trying to hide something from me. His mind raced again as he went through the 9, in fact 7 descriptions of the phantom postman in his mind several times. Soon, he came up with a plan. Of course, the time to execute this plan was not now. Brother Jew's top priority now was to deliver the letter. This is getting more and more interesting. When Feng Bujue said this sentence, it usually meant that he already knew some key information. Let me think the direction of the first street. He put away the workbook, picked up the satchel from the ground, and slung it over his body. Then he got on the bicycle. That way, half an hour later, Feng Bujue used up half of his stamina points, and he finally arrived at the door of First Street number 3. He did not choose to deliver the letter from the nearest to the nearest post office. Instead, he delivered it according to the address. Although this would take more time, this route allowed him to explore a few of the more interesting places on the way. Is this it? Feng Bujue looked at the 2-story house in front of him and said, "The house looks pretty good, but there's not even a mailbox in front of the house." Actually, even if this house had a mailbox, it would be useless. Stuffing the letter into the mailbox did not count as completing the mission. He had to personally hand it to the recipient and let the recipient express their willingness to accept. Then the mission progress would change. Sigh, I have no choice but to knock on the door. Brother Jew sighed, parked the bicycle, and quickly walked through the front yard in front of the house. He walked to the porch. Knock, knock, knock. After knocking on the door 3 times, he shouted, "Is anyone home?" After a short silence, there was some movement from the second floor of the house. Then, there was the sound of a fat man wearing slippers coming down the stairs. Some people might say, you can tell whether someone is fat or thin from the sound of their footsteps. I can only say, Brother Jew can tell. Click. Moments later, the door opened a gap. Since the person in the house did not remove the chain lock, the door could only be opened so wide. Who are you looking for? There was no light in the house. The house owner stood in the darkness behind the door and asked in a weak voice. I don't know. Feng Bujue replied honestly. He really did not know, because other than the address on the envelope, the contents were all blurry. Then get out. The house owner's reaction was quick. He cursed and slammed the door. Knock, 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 knock. Brother Jew immediately knocked on the door 5 more times. What the hell do you want? The owner opened the door a crack and roared impatiently. I'm from the post office. Feng Bujue took out his simple temporary work permit and waved it in front of the door. His tone, his posture, it was as if he was saying, I'm from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So, the house owner's attitude softened a little. He threw out a question to test the waters. Do you live here alone? Feng Bujue also asked a question. What does that have to do with you? The house owner asked back. It's okay if you don't answer. Feng Bujue replied indifferently and handed the envelope over. If you live here alone, this letter is for you. If there are other people living with you, you can help pass it to them. He paused for a moment. Anyway, I have already sent the letter. How you want to deal with it is up to you. He extended the envelope a little. Take it. What are you waiting for? No, I don't want it. At this moment, the house owner's tone suddenly became very strange. Go away. I don't want this letter. His words were very strange. He did not say, you sent it to the wrong place, but I don't want it. In other words, he admitted that the letter was sent to the right place, but he did not want it. Huh? Feng Bujue did not expect such a reaction. He stared at the shadow behind the door. Are you crazy? It's just a letter, not a bomb. Why don't you want it? The house owner heard this and was silent for a few seconds. Then he whispered, open it and see for yourself. Chapter 753. What did you say? Feng Bujue's attitude was firm. You want me to open it? He snorted. Are you crazy? What if it explodes? The homeowner was shocked. Hey, you said it's just a letter, not a bomb. So what I said is the truth? Then what if I told you to accept the letter? Would you listen? Feng Bujue interrupted sharply. Cut the crap. Hurry up and accept it. I still have more than 10 letters to deliver. I'm very busy. No, I refuse. Although the homeowner expressed his refusal, he did not slam the door or chase Brother Jew away. He hesitated for a few seconds and said, if you really want me to accept this letter, tell me my command code. What code? Feng Bujue asked. Command code, the homeowner repeated. What's that? Brother Jew asked again. You don't know? Ha ha. The homeowner suddenly laughed. Then I'm sorry, I can't wait. Feng Bujua interrupted him again. As long as I tell you the command code, this letter, you have to accept it, right? The homeowner swallowed nervously. If you can tell me, I'll accept the letter. Oh. Feng Bujua nodded and then began to bluff. When I left, the bureau chief told me a lot of command codes. I was a little confused. He looked at the homeowner and asked tentatively, Your code? Is it numbers or English? All command codes are numbers, the homeowner replied quickly. But after he said that, he was stunned. Have they introduced English codes? Yes. One of Feng Bujua's specialties was to talk nonsense with a straight face. There are also English codes mixed with numbers. He paused. Oh, by the way, how many digits is your code? 1 digit. The homeowner replied in a low voice. 1 digit? Feng Bujua gave him a look that said, Are you King kidding me? He looked at the black shadow behind the door and was silent for a moment. Then he asked in a doubtful tone, 1. Damn it. When the owner heard the number, he grumbled angrily. He reached out to take the letter and then closed the door. Side mission progress update. The system voice message also sounded at this moment. The CK. Feng Bujua stared at the door, dumbfounded. What plane? What thing? What the hell is this? Wasn't it just 1? 1 digit. I can guess it at most 10 times. Are you crazy? He cursed at the door for a while before turning to leave. As he walked through the front yard, he glanced at the game menu and confirmed that the mission progress had changed to send out all the letters before midnight. Current progress, 1/3. But I have to get back to that. Brother Jew returned to the side of the bicycle and mumbled to himself. The man's behavior is very strange. It doesn't look like there is a problem with his intelligence. His eyes instinctively moved to the temporary work permit that he was holding. After he found out about my identity, there was an obvious change in his attitude. Although he didn't seem very willing, he still answered my various questions. As he spoke, he put the work permit back into the inner pocket of his jacket. It seems this thing is much more useful than I thought. If there was a book, it would be long. If there was no book, it would be short. 10 minutes later, Brother Jew arrived at the second delivery address, 2nd Street, number 9. At this speed, even if I have to go somewhere other than the delivery address to do some research, there's still enough time. As Feng Bujua stopped the bicycle, he thought to himself, It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I still have 12 letters on hand. Even if I send out 1 letter every half an hour, I can still finish them before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's more than enough time for lunch. While he was thinking, he walked to the door of a house. The style of this house was almost the same as the one at number 3 on 1st Street, but the color of the outer wall was slightly different. There was also no mailbox in front of the door, and the front yard was also overgrown with weeds. Pa. Is anyone home? Feng Bujua used the same method as before to knock on the door. After a short silence, there was some movement from the 2nd floor of the house, followed by the sound of a fat man wearing slippers coming down the stairs. A moment later, the door opened, but it was still only a crack. The house was dark, and the second house owner was standing in the dark. He asked weakly, Who are you looking for? This scene gave Feng Bujua a strong sense of déjà vu. He couldn't help but think, What's going on? Even the voices are the same? Twins? Who are you looking for? The house owner saw that Brother Jew didn't answer, so he asked again. Feng Bujua thought for half a second before flashing his ID. Postman. Then, he handed over the envelope. Delivery. These 2 simple sentences caused the owner of the house to suck in a breath of cold air. You this. He mumbled a few words, and after a long while, he squeezed out a whole sentence. I don't want it. Take it. Humph. You don't want it? Feng Bujua sneered. Do you want me to tell you your command code before you take it? From his tone, it was as if he really knew. You tell me. The house owner seemed to be holding on to a sliver of hope and refused to give in. 2. Feng Bujua asked tentatively. Ha. Suddenly, the house owner laughed. No. 3. Feng Bujua tried again. After all, it didn't cost him anything to try. No. The house owner replied again. 4? Brother Jew continued, as if nothing had happened. No. The house owner raised his voice and interrupted. I say, are you planning to call them one by one? That's right. Phone Bujue replied. Can I? Air. The house owner thought about it. Yes. He gave an affirmative answer. Oh, by the way, Phone Bujue was reminded of something and added, your command code should be a single digit as well, right? It's a double digit, the house owner replied. Huh? Phone Bujue was taken aback and immediately thought to himself, hey, this doesn't sound good. I thought they were all single digits, but the second guy is a double digit. What if there are 7 or 8 digits after that? Even if I have the patience to try them one by one, there won't be enough time. Can you go back now? The house owner asked weakly. Phone Bujue's response was, He cleared his throat and chuckled. 11? Chapter 754. Phone Bujue did not spend too much time on the second house owner, because when he told him that he was 16, the man had already accepted the letter. Side mission progress updated. Send out all the letters before midnight. Current progress, February 3rd. The system announcement came at the right time, and the content of the mission tab changed accordingly. Damn it. The second house owner's reaction was the same as the first. He took the letter angrily and turned to slam the door. Brother Jew was quick to react. He stuck the toe of his shoe into the gap and grabbed the doorknob from the outside. He said, Wait, I have another question. What is it? The house owner replied impatiently. Do you have any relatives in this town? Phone Bujue asked. Huh? The house owner replied in a confused tone. Why do you ask? He paused for half a second before adding, I have no relatives, none at all. Then, without even closing the door, he turned and walked away. Hey! Phone Bujue shouted again, but the man ignored him completely. Based on the sound of footsteps, the man seemed to have gone upstairs. Then, Brother Jew tried to break in, but the gap was too narrow, and the door was locked securely. After 3 minutes, he had to give up. Something is wrong. When Phone Bujue returned to the bicycle, he was still mumbling to himself. Something is definitely wrong. He pedaled, and his mind turned. How come I feel like this man is the same person as the first house owner? Could it be that after he received my letter at 1st Street number 3, he came to 2nd Street number 9 to pretend to be the second house owner? He shook his head slightly. That doesn't seem very likely. I can ride very fast, and I'm taking the shortest route, even if he has a motorcycle or a horse. If he wants to bypass me and arrive early, there's not much time left, unless there's a tunnel underneath the 2 houses and there is some kind of transportation that is faster than a bicycle. Otherwise, there is no way he could have done that. With that in mind, he roughly reviewed the plot and soundtrack of the classic movie Tunnel War in his mind, and then he rejected the above hypothesis. Even if they're not the same person, they're definitely connected. Even though I did not get a good look at his face, be it his voice, posture, or even tone, the two of them are very similar. He thought back to the conversation that he had with the second house owner. But from the way Fatty number 2, this is naturally the temporary code name that Brother Jew gave to the NPC, acted, he did not appear to be lying. At least he thinks he has no other relatives in town. Brother Jew raised his hand and scratched his head. Could it be because decades ago, Fatty number 1's father often visited Fatty number 2's house? Or perhaps the father of Fatty number 2 often went to Fatty number 1's house. Or maybe Fatty 1's mother often. He shrugged and stopped this meaningless speculation. Actually, these situations seem to be the same situation. After he understood, he said, then let's keep the possibility that they are brothers and think of other hypotheses. Just like that, he thought as he rode. About 5 minutes later, Brother Jew's eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a smile. I've got it. The next second, he said in a low voice, clones, as the saying went, mental patients have a wider mind. Even though Brother Jew was not mentally ill, his mental state was indeed different from normal people, and his mind could be said to be off the charts. That's right. If you think about it that way, it makes sense. Phone Bujua said confidently. The statement, no relatives can be explained by this conclusion. While he was thinking, he happened to arrive at the address of the third letter, 3rd Avenue, number 7. This was another 2-story residential building. There was no mailbox in front of the house, and the grass in front of the door was yellow. The structure and design of the house were similar to the previous 2 houses. Pa pa pa, open the door, open the door. This time, Brother Jew directly asked, "Is anyone home?" He didn't even need to ask that question. He slammed on the door and yelled for someone to open the door like he was there to raid the house. Soon, there was movement in the house again. 2nd floor, fatty, slippers. You know what I mean. After more than a minute, the door opened a crack, and a fat figure stood in the shadows. He asked impatiently, "Who are you looking for?" "Postman." Phone Buja narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Delivering a letter." He picked up the document and waved it in front of the fat man, and then handed over the letter. "Let me guess. You don't want to accept it?" Fatty number 3 was stunned for a few seconds, and then nodded his head. Yes, I don't want to accept it. Do you want me to tell you your command code before you accept it?" Phone Bujua dragged his words and stared at the fat man. Yes. Fatty number 3 replied. Brother Jew sighed. "Let me confirm. How many digits is your command code?" 3. 3 digits. Fatty number 3 answered reluctantly. Madhurf asterisk cur. Phone Bujua cursed, and then thought. 3 digits. It's not impossible to guess. If I'm unlucky, I'll just say 800 digits, and I can definitely finish it in 15 minutes. But according to this trend, the code is likely to be even longer. If I get a 7-digit number, I won't be able to finish it even if I read it at the speed of a tongue twister. Do you know the code or not? Fatty number 3 saw Brother Jew's expression and said, "If you don't know, then go back." Well, Phone Bujua thought for 2 seconds and replied, "Hypothetically. Please note, this is just hypothetically." If I don't know, then, where should I go to get your command code? Only the ghost postman knows everyone's command code. Fatty number 3 replied. What? Brother Jew paused for half a second and said, "I mean, are you trying to trick me?" "Why do you say that?" Fatty number 3 asked. "You should know. If you talk to the ghost postman, he will attack you with soul shock," Phone Bujua said. "Yeah." Fatty number 3 replied in a matter-of-fact tone. "That's why everyone writes to him." He paused. Who would be stupid enough to talk to him? King Fatty. Just you wait. The next second, Phone Bujua turned to leave, cursing under his breath. Combined with the contents of the work manual, Fatty number 3's answer should be credible. At this time, Brother Jew finally realized this side mission was far from as simple as it seemed. Whether or not he could complete it before midnight depended on the following progress. Chapter 755. After leaving 3rd Avenue number 7, Phone Bujua did not head to the cemetery immediately. Instead, he continued to head to the address of the 4th recipient. He was a very organized person and would not easily mess up his own plans. Based on the route he had planned in advance, after he sent the 9th letter, he would take a detour to the cemetery. That was the most logical and time-saving plan. Therefore, even though he did not manage to send the 3rd letter, he planned to stick to the original route and wait for more information before making a decision. 10 minutes later. 4th Avenue, number 10. Brother Jew stopped in front of a familiar house. He walked through the familiar grass and stood on a familiar porch. He knocked on a familiar door. "Pa pa pa, open the door. Hurry." Phone Bujua shouted as he slammed the door. Soon, there were familiar footsteps coming from upstairs. The door was open a sliver. From a shadow behind the door, a familiar voice sounded. "Who are you looking for?" "Postman, delivering a letter." Phone Bujua replied quickly and showed his ID skillfully. Then he added, "Do you accept it or not?" "No." Number 4 only said 1 syllable. Brother Jew rudely interrupted him. "How many digits is your command code?" "Air." The man hesitated for half a second before replying. Four digits. Is the first digit number 1? On the way here, Fong Bujue had an idea. He wanted to use these recipients' characteristic of answering all questions and rely on a set of targeted questions to get the specific value of the command code. Unfortunately, this kind of action naturally wouldn't succeed. The system wouldn't allow such an unskilled trick to work. I can't answer this question. Fatty number 4's tone sounded a little like an NPC in a game. Oh. Fong Bujue was not too surprised because he knew that this method would most likely fail. He was just asking with a tentative attitude. Then, is this number bigger or smaller than 5,555? I can't answer that question. Fatty number 4 repeated the same answer with the same tone and voice as before. Is this an odd number or an even number? Was it a prime number? Is it a lucky number? Fong Bujue asked 3 questions in one breath. I can't answer these questions. Fatty number 4 expressed that he had no comment. All right. Fong Bujue appeared to be very calm. At this moment, he was certain that these recipients could only reveal the type of the command code. Numbers, not letters or anything else, and the number of digits. Is there anything else? If you don't have anything else to do, please leave. 2 seconds later, Fatty number 4 couldn't wait to ask them to leave. Before I leave, I want to ask. Brother Ju once again used the method he used to deal with Fatty number 2, stopping him from slamming the door. Are you a clone? What are you talking about? I don't understand, number 4 replied. Oh. Fong Bujue's eyes moved slightly, and he thought to himself, it's not that you can't answer this time, but you don't understand? If you don't know the code, I won't accept the letter. Please leave. 5 seconds later, Fatty number 4 saw that the door wouldn't close, so he left that sentence behind and went upstairs. This time, Brother Ju didn't try to break the door down. He rushed back to the bicycle and headed toward the 5th address. I think I get it now. He sped up his pedaling and his thought process. The responses of these recipients to the questions are can answer, can't answer, and can't answer or provide feedback. From the result of the test, the information that can be answered is the most basic clue that I need to solve the riddle. Some of the questions that are too direct or opportunistic were all categorized as can't answer. As for can't answer or provide feedback, it means that, according to the setting of the scenario, these NPCs are unable to provide the corresponding clues and answers. When he thought about this, his expression turned serious. Things are more complicated than I thought. In any case, I should try again at the next address to confirm it. To make a long story short, at 11:30 a.m., Fong Bujue had finished visiting the addresses of the first 9 letters. Other than the first and second recipients, none of the recipients from the 3rd to the 9th letter accepted the letter. However, Brother Ju managed to confirm his previous speculation from them and asked for the digits of their command codes one by one. Starting from the one on the 3rd Avenue to Fatty number 9 on the 9th Avenue, the command codes of the 7 people were 3 digits for digits, 5 digits, 6 digits, 7 digits, 8 digits, and 10 digits respectively. Okay, it's about time to contact my ghost colleague. After leaving the house at the 3rd Street, Fong Bujue got on the bicycle and raised his head. According to the map, on the way to the cemetery, I'll pass by a shop. I should be able to get the paper I need to send the letter there. Along the way, he had found out the details of writing a letter to the ghost postman. The letter to the ghost postman did not need an envelope or stamp. It only needed to follow the correct letter format and write the content on a piece of white paper. However, the paper had to be clean, the handwriting had to be neat, and the wording had to be polite and precise. Of course, even if the sender strictly followed these requirements, it was unknown whether the ghost postman would reply after receiving the letter and how long it would take. Anyway, I already have a pen to write the letter. Fong Bujue read as he rode the bicycle. If the shop is open as usual, I can buy some food and drink to replenish my energy. Even if it's not open as usual, it shouldn't be difficult to get a piece of paper. Just as Brother Ju was thinking, suddenly hiss. The familiar voice came again from the fog. Again, Brother Ju's eyes quickly caught the tire marks on the ground. He knew that his colleague was going to pass by again. Sigh, I'll make way for you, Fong Bujue said in his heart, turned the bicycle around, and rode to the side of the road. He thought that the ghost postman would pass by silently like when he first met him, but unexpectedly, whoosh, accompanied by the sound of the wind, a roll of newspaper suddenly appeared in the air and accurately fell into Brother Jew's bicycle pocket. Judging from the trajectory of the newspaper, it seemed that the ghost postman threw it when he passed by Brother Jew. Chapter 756. It was the end of the year again, and it was time for the annual voting. This kind of voting, ranking, and so on always made people feel a sense of anger. I personally do not like to ask for votes, and everyone knows that. Normally, I would not bother you guys every few days, but it did not seem like it would be a good idea to keep quiet. 3 days and 2 sleeps was not a person who liked to force things. He was too utilitarian, and that was very boring. Over the years, the various changes in the online literature community were both good and bad. Everyone was familiar with the situation on Chidian, when things like vote rigging have become commonplace, and there are even people who call it operations. As a bystander, I can only say that this is very sad, very disgusting, and also very chilling. This meant that there were more and more people who were willing to join the bad guys, and there were fewer and fewer people who were willing to stick to the bottom line. There were more and more people who were thinking about unfair competition, and there were fewer and fewer people who were thinking about how to write a good novel. But no matter what the situation was, I was still me. I understand. When a person used despicable means to gain honor and profit, they had already lost something more precious, and they might never be able to get it back. Here, I will not shout brothers and sisters, nor will I passionately ask everyone to fight with me, nor will I cry for my parents, act cute, and roll on the ground. I only hope that I can get some support from the audience. If you like Thriller Paradise and think that this novel is well written, then please vote for this book during the annual voting. I do not need to get a ranking. I just want to see a real vote at the end of the voting to let me know that there are still many people who like this book, and that will be enough. Even if this book ends up empty-handed this year, for me, there will be no regrets. Because each of your votes, each of your sincere support, is more valuable than the so-called ranking. Chapter 757. He sure knows how to have fun. Fong Bujua looked at the newspaper in the bicycle pocket, and his mouth twitched slightly. Although he was somewhat dissatisfied and had some doubts, he still endured it. If he turned around and asked the ghost postman loudly, there were only 2 outcomes. 1, he would be ignored. 2, he would be electrocuted. There's no other way. Let's see what he wants. After the buzzing sound went away, Brother Bujua simply parked the bicycle, took out the newspaper from the bicycle pocket, and slowly unfolded it in front of his eyes. The first thing that caught his eye was the name of the publication itself, Otaku Town Pioneer. Then there was the headline, Ghost Postman Wins Otaku Post Office Employee of the Year Award again. What was quite funny was that the picture accompanying this news was just a landscape photo with no one around. This reporter is quite hardworking. If the tire marks on the ground were not drawn by him, it means that he really caught Brother Ghost riding a bicycle. Fong Bujua read the newspaper and read, wait, before this, in such a small town, there's a newspaper? No matter if it was windy, rainy, scorching sun, hailstorm, typhoon, fog, we couldn't see the ghost postman running around. But we all know very well that he has always been at his post, conscientious, shining, and contributing to the construction of a harmonious and beautiful otaku town. Of course, his achievements are inseparable from the wise leadership of the town's postmaster, Mr. Norman Nelson. It is also inseparable from the great otaku spirit that the town upholds. The writer of this article is a new member of Beep Society, isn't he? After reading the first part of the article, Fong Bujua could not help but grumble. Classic bullsh *T, classic twist, and classic flattery. The rest of the report was basically the same. It mainly listed some deeds of the ghost postman's diligent work and forcibly took some of the credit to the leaders. So, it was not easy to be a model worker these days. If you want to enjoy the honor you have earned, you have to thank the country, the party, and your leaders. This is the daily newspaper on Christmas Day. Most of the news reported on it should be yesterday's news. After Feng Bujue finished reading the first page of the newspaper, he glanced at the date in the corner. However, this headline doesn't seem to have much value. I already knew this from the post office's manual, he muttered as he flipped through the newspaper. Unexpectedly, when he flipped to the second page of the newspaper, something strange happened. What do you mean? Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes and flipped through a few more pages. Soon, he discovered that other than the headline on the front page and the advertisement at the end of the page, an advertisement for a bicycle, there was not a single word in the middle of the stack of newspapers in his hand. But the layout on each page had already been arranged, and the illustrations had already been inserted. Invisible ink? Wordless heavenly book? Two thoughts quickly flashed through Feng Bujue's mind. His gaze moved rapidly across the paper, looking for clues. After he carefully examined it, he confirmed that it was true that the words were not printed. This is quite F***king creative. Brother Ju laughed. Is this really a newspaper or an English test paper to talk through pictures? As he joked around, he quickly flipped through the blank pages of the newspaper and memorized the contents of all the illustrations. Not sure if it was a coincidence. The number of illustrations was a total of 13. 10 minutes later, Brother Ju, who was heading north, arrived at the location of the shop on the map. Like the other shops in the town, the door was closed, and there was a closed sign hanging on the door. Looking through the glass door, he was sure that there was no one in the shop, and it looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. Oh, as expected, Feng Bujue looked at the door of the shop and smiled bitterly. 2 seconds later, he got off the bicycle and parked it. Then, he picked up a large stone on the side of the road. Bang, bang, bang. He swung his arm and hit the glass door 3 times. In the end, only a small white dot was left on the glass. There was not even a crack. His arm, on the other hand, was numb from the impact. Is this necessary? Feng Bujue took 2 steps back and threw the stone away. Is this bulletproof glass? He really did not understand why the glass door of an ordinary grocery store was so sturdy. This is too much. Brother Ju panted. He reached into his shirt pocket and took out the Nokia 3310. Stop. Suddenly, the ethereal female voice that had appeared once before rang out again. Feng Bujue heard it and quickly stopped. He turned around and scanned the area. Sure enough, this fellow is not a human either. While searching for her in the fog, he thought to himself, she was clearly blocked on the other side of the bridge earlier, and now she has reappeared in the town. How did you enter the town? Feng Bujue could not find her specific location, so he decided to ask her a few questions first. Is there a rescue team outside the town? I have been here all this time. I have never left, the woman replied. Her voice echoed in the fog. It was difficult to find the source of her voice. Then, let me ask you this. Facing this answer that was as good as nothing, Feng Bujue immediately changed his question. How did you cross that bridge? But this time, the woman ignored Brother Ju's question and said, Dave, I can't explain too much to you, but you have to believe me. I want to help you. She sounded very sincere. Don't destroy the buildings in this town. It won't do you any good, and it will cause irreparable consequences. I can believe you, Feng Bujue said. But you have to answer me first. How did you? Bang, 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 bang. At that moment, the sound of hurried chains came from all around them, and it drowned out Feng Bujue's voice. What's going on? Feng Bujue was shocked. Judging from the sound, there were at least 20 old-fashioned bicycles riding at the same time. Is there more than one phantom postman? At the same time, the ethereal female voice suddenly shouted, This is your chance. Open your eyes. Her voice pierced through the noise and reached Brother Ju's ears. Open my eyes? Feng Bujue knew that the man's order was important, but he could not understand the meaning behind it because his eyes were undeniably open. Fortunately, his confusion did not last long. The next second, there was a sudden change. Chapter 758. Gurgle, gurgle. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. The sound of liquid bubbling suddenly appeared in Feng Bujue's ears. At the same second, he realized something. His eyes were closed. The scenery before his eyes disappeared, and he was surrounded by darkness. The cold mist around him seemed to have thickened by dozens of times in an instant, firmly wrapping around him. "What's going on?" Feng Bujue gasped. "Have I been attacked by some kind of mental attack? Why do I feel like my body, including my lungs, are filled with liquid? And there's no sense of discomfort. D. At that moment, he heard 2 more beeps. Then came a voice that sounded very similar to the system audio. "Warning, tester 8775 is waking up. Warning, tester 8775 is waking up. Hey, who is responsible for that cabin?" "It's Anton, sir. He has gone for lunch, sir." "Then hurry up and move your ass. Go over there and do it for him." "Yes, sir." This muffled conversation that came from an unknown place rang out a few seconds later. "Who is it?" Feng Bujue wanted to ask, but he soon realized that he could not open his mouth. He could only ask in his heart, "What kind of development is this? Where am I?" He wanted to open his eyes, but his eyelids felt as heavy as a mountain, and this simple thought caused a splitting headache. "My whole body is weak. All my senses are reduced to the level of a vegetable, and I can't even open the game menu." Feng Bujue did not panic. He quickly and calmly analyzed the situation. "No matter what, just like the woman said, I have to open my eyes as soon as possible. This is the perfect chance for me to understand the setting of this scenario. The concentration of the solution is increasing. Preparing for an emergency pulse. Counting down from 5. 5, 4, 3. The emotionless voice said again. Even though Brother Bujue did not fully understand what it was saying, he knew this was probably bad news for him. 2. At the last second, at the last moment, Feng Bujue used his amazing willpower to resist the indescribable headache and open his eyes. However, his vision only recovered for about a second. A second later, a piercing pain that exceeded the limits of what a human brain could endure assaulted him, causing his body to violently convulse. Then he fell into a state where he lost all 5 senses. However, Brother Ju was no ordinary person. In that short second, he withstood the soreness of his retina and successfully saw something through a layer of transparent, pale green liquid and 2 layers of glass. Or at least glass. He saw a person. To be more precise, it was an adult man wearing a light-colored bodysuit floating in the liquid. Moreover, the man's appearance. Feng Bujue had seen him once, the man in the felt hat. It felt like only a moment had passed, yet it also felt like a long time had passed. In short, when Feng Bujue regained control of his body, the first thing he did was take a deep breath. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and realized that he was leaning against the glass door of the shop, sitting on the ground. The surroundings were still shrouded in fog, and the ethereal female voice and the sound of the bicycle chains had disappeared. And next to his hand, a blank piece of paper had appeared out of thin air. It feels like I have returned and somehow obtained a crucial item. Feng Bujue glanced at the game menu. His life points and stamina points had not changed, and there was no debuff. What I saw earlier should not be an illusion, and it did not appear to be a memory fragment. There is a very high chance that it is a reality that happened in real time. He patted the dust off his body, picked up the paper, and stood up. In other words, this small town that I am in now, or rather, this world, might not be real. This hypothesis changed Feng Bujue's train of thought. Ever since he entered this scenario, all of his knowledge and speculation had to be re-examined on this basis. Things are getting more and more complicated. Even though he was thinking, Brother Ju did not stop moving. No matter what happened, there was one principle that would not change. There was nothing wrong with following the mission. Therefore, as Feng Bujue mulled over the earlier plot, he got back on a bicycle and continued to move forward. Now, here comes the question. Am I playing the role of Dave, or the so-called Tester 8775? Is Dave the name of Tester 8775? Or is this a character that Tester 8775 is playing? Brother Ju thought, what kind of existence is that man in the felt hat? Is he just a projection that appeared in my mind unconsciously? Or is he a crucial clue? Feng Bujue struggled in the whirlpool of thought, searching for various possible answers. The hypothesis about the clones of the house owners was no longer important. If this was really a world that existed on the level of consciousness, then the appearance of these people would be meaningless. Even if they all looked like dogs, it would be reasonable. He arranged his thoughts as he rode the bicycle, and before he knew it, he had arrived at the northern cemetery. This was a very ordinary-looking cemetery. On the vast grassland, there were stone tombstones neatly erected one after another, and in front of each tombstone was a small mound slightly raised. Where is that abandoned mailbox? Feng Bujue pedaled the bicycle and moved down the path between the cemeteries, looking for the mailbox that could be used to contact the ghost postman. Soon, he saw one at the western edge of the cemetery. It was a dark green, cylindrical mailbox. There was a gap at the top for mail delivery, and the mailbox had the words Otaku Town Post Office printed on it. Feng Bujue parked the bicycle and walked to the back of the mailbox. He looked at the mailbox and realized that there was a very small circular lock tied to it. It doesn't look that hard to break. He looked at the lock and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he decided not to use brute force to open it. But from the overall atmosphere of this scenario, I'd better not use brute force to break it open. He walked back to the front of the mailbox and took out the blank letter paper and Dave's ballpoint pen. He placed the paper on top of the mailbox and started to write. Dear Mr. Ghost Postman, how are you? Considering the fact that he only had one piece of paper, it was impossible for him to change anything. So Brother Jew was very serious when he wrote the letter. Every sentence was written after careful deliberation. My name is Dave, a temporary postman at the Otaku Town Post Office. I think you still remember me, because we've met more than once today, and you even shocked me once. Of course, I have no problem with that. You did not do anything wrong. I am new here, and I don't know the rules. Laugh. Back to the topic. The reason I am writing to you is because I have a few things that I wish to ask you. Firstly, can you tell me the command codes of the owners of number 7 3rd Avenue, number 10 4th Avenue, number 3 5th Avenue, number 9 6th Avenue, number 7 7th Avenue, number 1 8th Avenue, number 3 9th Avenue, number 9 10th Avenue, number 7 11th Avenue, number 1 12th Avenue, and number 3 13th Avenue? Second, I want to confirm with you, are you really working in this town voluntarily? Third, what kind of message is hidden in the newspaper that you gave me earlier? Fourth, I want to ask, why are all the shops in this town closed? Why can Commissioner Nelson kill people as he pleases? And how can I gain your approval to become the official postman of Otaku Town? If it is convenient, please answer my questions as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Dave. After finishing the letter with what he thought was a neat handwriting, Feng Bujue looked through it again. After confirming that there was no problem with the content, he folded the letter and shoved it into the mailbox. Chapter 759. Feng Bujue did not know when and how the ghost postman would reply to his letter. He was not even sure if the postman would reply. Regarding this information, the fat NPC said that they could not answer him, so Brother Jew could only play it by ear. So, now it's time to deliver the 10th letter. After leaving the mailbox, Feng Bujue returned to the bicycle and said, I should go replenish my stamina points first. When he got on the bicycle, he checked the game menu again. Now, his life points had slowly recovered to 54%, but his stamina points were only at 452, 4800. This was the difficulty of calculating stamina points based on the character's physical body. In some of the nightmare scenarios that Brother Jew had experienced before, he had encountered this kind of setting several times. Seeking poison in the wild was a good example. No matter how high the player's level was, how many items and skills could increase stamina points. In this kind of nightmare scenario, the player would have as much stamina points as the character that they were playing. If the player used the stamina points recklessly, the effect would be self-explanatory. I should think of a way to get some supplies first. Feng Bujue thought about it and made a decision. Before Brother Spectre replies to me, It will be extremely difficult for me to decipher the command code on my own. After all, the information that I have collected from the recipients is enough. There is no need to use my last bit of stamina to do something that will not benefit me. After deciding on the next step of the plan, he took out the mini-map of the small town from his pocket. After looking at it for a few seconds, he set off. At noon, Fong Bujue arrived at the only bar in town. The name of the bar was Otaku. It was about 100 square meters in size, smaller than the post office. The reason Brother Ju came here was simple. According to the illustration on the mini-map, this Western-style bar had a door that could not be closed. Instead of calling it a door, it was more like two movable wooden planks. It's impossible that I can't get in now, right? Fong Bujue pushed the door open with a smile and walked into Otaku bar. We haven't opened for business yet, sir. Brother Ju was greeted with this sentence. Fong Bujue raised his eyes to look at the speaker. It was a bald man about 2 meters tall. He was about 40 years old and was dressed as a bartender. When Brother Ju entered, he was standing behind the bar, quietly wiping glasses. I won't be here for too long. Fong Bujue ignored the man's advice and walked straight to the bar counter. During this process, he had already scanned the environment of the entire bar. Cheap linen wallpaper, cheap wooden floor, cheap bar counter, cheap tables and chairs, cheap sofa, cheap billiard table. Beside the billiard table, there was a bearded man dressed as a cowboy, playing billiard alone. I'm sorry, it's not a matter of how long I stay. Seeing Brother Ju sit down as if nothing happened, the bald bartender's expression changed slightly. We don't receive any guests outside of business hours. Please come back after 5 o'clock in the evening. Okay, young. Let him sit for a while. Suddenly, the bearded cowboy at the billiard table interrupted. This gentleman doesn't look like a troublemaker. While speaking, he took a shot, straightened up, and looked at Brother Ju. Am I right, sir? Oh, of course. Fong Bujue smiled at the bearded man, then turned his head and looked at the bartender. Can I have something to drink? Water is fine. The bald bartender looked at Brother Ju for 2 seconds, then took out a clean cup and poured a glass of cold water. Excuse me, is there anything to eat? Anything is fine, Fong Bujue said again. This time, the bald bartender looked at him suspiciously. Are you sure you have enough money to pay, sir? When he said this sentence, he deliberately emphasized the word sir. Yes, Fong Bujue only wanted to eat and drink, so his attitude was very polite. As he spoke, he reached for his wallet. If you need, I can— Oh, no, young man, don't be like this. At this time, the bearded man loudly stopped Brother Ju's actions and quickly walked over. When he reached the bar, the bearded man looked at the bartender and said, Yang, how can you talk to a customer like this? Do you think this gentleman doesn't even have money to buy a glass of water? No, boss, the bald bartender replied. I'm just worried that he'll be like those drunkards and homeless people coming in to eat and drink without any money. Oh, so this cowboy uncle is the boss. Fong Bujue heard this and thought to himself. In fact, at the beginning of the conversation between the two, he was already vaguely aware of this. Now that Yang directly called out the word boss, his guess was confirmed. Ah, Yang, you worry too much. The bearded man patted Brother Ju's shoulder. Looking at this gentleman's complexion and clothes, I know he's not that kind of person. He snapped his fingers and gave Yang a look. Come, give me some snacks, I'm hungry too. All right, since you've said so. The bald bartender shrugged his shoulders and replied. A few seconds later, he took out 2 small bamboo bowls lined with paper towels from the bar. Both bowls were filled with fried snacks. Thank you, buddy, Fong Bujue said to Yang, then looked at the bearded man and said, Thank you too, boss. Then Brother Ju grabbed a bunch of snacks and stuffed them into his mouth like he was stuffing a duck. He was indeed hungry, and he was very hungry. This hunger was no doubt simulated by the scenario. It was similar to muscle fatigue, and it had to be alleviated or else it would not disappear on its own. Ha ha! The bearded man looked at Brother Ju's table manners and laughed. Young man, you can't treat this as a meal. I know, but all the restaurants in town are closed. Fong Bujue puffed out his cheeks and replied with a muffled voice. This seemingly casual answer was actually a test. Brother Jew had stayed in town for so long, and he finally met two relatively normal-looking NPCs. He did not want to miss this opportunity to get more information. Therefore, without batting an eyelid, he mentioned a strange but objective fact to see the two NPCs' reaction. Ha ha ha! To his surprise, the bearded man laughed heartily and replied, "You sure know how to joke, young man. It's broad daylight and it's Christmas, so why would the shops be closed? Look." He raised his hand to point at the entrance of the bar. "Isn't the restaurant across the street open?" Across the street? Fong Bujue was stunned. He looked in the direction that the man was pointing at, and all he could see was a white fog. He could not even see several meters away from the entrance of the shop, much less the scenery on the other side of the street. Ha ha ha! Brother Jew laughed drily. You're right. He had no idea whether the NPC was telling the truth or not, but he did not want to argue with him. Oh, by the way, I haven't introduced myself. The bearded man did not continue the topic of the restaurant. He took off his cowboy hat and extended his hand to Brother Jew. I'm the owner here. They all call me Sagittarius. Nice to meet you. Fong Bujue replied politely. I'm Dave. He wiped his hand on his jacket before shaking the man's hand. This is my bartender, Yang. Then Sagittarius raised his hand to signal the bald bartender. Rumor has it that he used to be a mafia member, but later Hey! Yang immediately shouted, interrupting his boss. Sagittarius shrugged and laughed. Ha ha ha. Okay, he's a decent man. I didn't say anything. Nice to meet you, Yang. Fong Bujue pretended not to hear anything and greeted Yang calmly. Yang only nodded at him, and the expression on his face was still serious and cold. Who are these two? Fong Bujue finished one bowl of snacks in less than a minute and moved on to the second bowl. One is overly friendly, and the other is overly cold. And based on their appearance and their names, if Sagittarius can be counted as a name, they both look like mafia members. A thought came to him. Could it be there's a side quest here? Chapter 760. In the next 10 minutes, Fong Bujue finished 5 bowls of snacks and used a glass of whiskey to drink 8 glasses of water. When he opened the game menu again, the feeling of hunger and thirst had completely disappeared. His stamina points had returned to 1902-4800, and even his life points had increased to more than 70%. It looked like in this scenario, the recovery and decay of the various stamina points were the same, and they were all based on the character's actual physical appearance. In other words, the stamina points would recover quickly. Other than that, while Brother Jew chewed on the food, he did not forget to communicate with the NPCs. Even though his speech was slightly slurred, the two NPCs had good hearing, and they could understand Brother Jew perfectly. Therefore, he managed to get close to the two easily. All right, we've talked a lot about me. Fong Bujue, who had finished his meal, drank another glass of water to rinse his mouth, and then changed the topic. How about we talk about the two of you? Once that was said, the expression on the shooter and Yang's face changed immediately. However, Brother Jew did not care about that. He did not give them time to think and quickly asked, I wonder how long you two have been in this town? Kacha! Kacha! 1.5 seconds later, the two guns were aimed at Fong Bujue's temple and forehead respectively. In that 1.5 seconds, Yang pulled out a shotgun from under the bar counter at lightning speed. The shooter, on the other hand, pulled out a revolver from his body. His speed was as fast as lightning. Perhaps even a real cowboy could not compare to him. Oh, calm down, calm down. Fong Bujue quickly raised his hands, stood up from the bar counter, and took half a step back. Speak. Who are you? Yang demanded in a cold voice. Did the FBI send you here? He doesn't look like one, the shooter said. He looks more like the CIA. His gun slowly moved down. How about we break one of his legs first, and then we can slowly interrogate him. Hey, don't do anything stupid. Fong Bujue widened his eyes, and he used a very exaggerated acting to show his fear. He added, I'm just a postman who came to town to apply for a job. Yes, you've already said that, the shooter said with a grin. But we don't believe a word of it. He glanced at Yang. Isn't that right, old friend? That's right. Yang added. At first, I didn't realize it. I thought he was just a scammer. He paused and looked back at Sagittarius. It wasn't until you gave me a look that I realized. Why would someone walk into a bar in the middle of the day just to have a drink and snack? At this point, he gripped the gun in his hand even tighter. He glared at Brother Jew and said, "It is obvious that you are here for us." "Hey, I don't even know any of you." Phone Bujua was breaking out in cold sweat. But the two continued to ignore him. "Stop joking around," Sagittarius said with a smile. "I knew something was wrong with you the moment you stepped into the bar. The reason I asked you to stay was to test you." He scoffed. "Humph, temporary postman? Who are you trying to fool?" He tightened his grip on the gun and looked like he was ready to pull the trigger at any time. "Just last night, someone came to the shop and claimed that he was going to the post office for an interview. Even if there was a temporary postman in town today, it should be him." "Wait." Phone Bujua suddenly raised his voice. "The person you're talking about, was he wearing a fancy felt hat?" The shooter heard this and was obviously stunned. Seeing the shooter's reaction, Brother Jew calmed down. He knew there was a chance. "How did you know?" The shooter and Yang exchanged glances and asked. "I saw him at the post office this morning." Phone Bujua answered truthfully. "He and I both came for an interview, but he didn't get the chance to be a temporary postman." "Oh," Yang asked suspiciously. "Why?" He looked Brother Jew up and down and said, "Is it because you're a little more handsome than him?" "No." Phone Bujua shook his head. "It's because he was a few minutes late and Director Nelson shot him." Hearing this, the shooter and Yang muttered at the same time. 2 seconds later, they said in unison, "That's possible. F***CK? What kind of people are they helping?" Phone Bujua thought to himself, "Is this town a re-employment center for retired assassins?" After hearing that someone was shot because he was late, they showed an expression of "I see." "Wait." After a few seconds, the shooter seemed to remember something. He said, "How do I know you're not making this up? Maybe you came to our bar last night and heard what the man in the felt hat said. Now you're just using a pre-planned excuse to get away with it." "That's right." Yang agreed. "How can you prove that the man was shot dead by Nelson? How can you prove that you went to the post office this morning?" That. Phone Bujua tilted his head and glanced at his jacket pocket. "If you two agree, I could take out a temporary post office work permit from my jacket pocket and show it to you. It has my name and Director Nelson's signature on it." He paused for a moment and added, "In my wallet, there's a driver's license with my name and a photo." The shooter and Yang looked at each other and seemed to believe him. However, they still did not put down the guns in their hands. "Take out both." After a moment, the shooter looked at Brother Jew and said, "Slow down." "Yes, that's it." Phone Bujua followed the shooter's instructions and took out his temporary work permit and slowly placed it on the bar counter. Then, he took out his wallet from his trouser pocket and flipped to the page with the driver's license. He held it in front of the two men. "Haha." At this time, the shooter suddenly laughed and put away the revolver in his hand as if nothing had happened. He stepped forward and gave Brother Jew a hug. "Oh, man, I thought you were from the CIA, huh?" Yang maintained his cold image and silently put the shotgun back under the bar counter. "It seems that the misunderstanding between us has been resolved. I have to buy you a drink, young man." The archer's ferocious and shrewd temperament vanished in an instant. As if he had schizophrenia, he turned back into the amiable, warm, and friendly uncle. "Yang, hurry up and pour a glass of wine for our friend to calm him down." Before he finished, Yang had already pushed a glass of wine with ice cubes before Brother Jew. In less than 10 seconds, he had already prepared a glass of wine for himself and his boss. "To our new postman." The shooter was the first to raise his glass. "To the new postman." Yang also raised his glass and said calmly. Looking at the two burning eyes, Phone Bujua stared at them and also raised his glass. "Ah, thank you." The three of them raised their glasses and downed them all in one gulp. Phone Bujua was not a person who liked to drink. He hated the feeling of alcohol dissolving in his throat. But just because he didn't like it didn't mean he couldn't drink. After he finished the drink, his expression was no different from drinking a glass of water. "That, were we talking earlier?" "We were." "No comment." Yang continued Brother Ju's words and coldly said these 4 words. Obviously, he still remembered the question Feng Bujua asked earlier. Okay. Feng Bujua was not going to ask for a rebuff. He had already deduced from the 2 NPCs' reactions that unless they told him themselves, it was best not to ask about their origins. Let's talk about something else. Are there a lot of fat people living in our town? Huh. The shooter revealed a sly smile. He did not answer Brother Ju's question. Instead, he said, "Listen, Dave, you have to pay a price for asking around the bar. Do you understand?" "Oh, I understand." Feng Bujue opened his wallet and pulled out a $5 bill. That's not what I meant. Unexpectedly, the shooter pushed the money back. "I don't want the money." "You don't want the money. You want the person?" Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes and gave the shooter a strange look. The shooter did not care about his reaction. He just said, "When you opened your wallet earlier, I saw a membership card for the Dark Club." Feng Bujue paused for half a second before replying. "You mean there's a reason why people call me the shooter?" The shooter continued. "Because I'm very accurate at everything I play. Not only with guns, but also with bows and arrows, slingshots, bowling, billiards, and darts. They are all my strengths." So, Feng Bujue tried to figure out what the shooter meant and said, "You, who can't find a match in this small town, you want to play with me, a member of the Dark Club?" "Huh?" The shooter replied with a smile. "1 round, 1 question. Every time you lose, you have to answer 1 question from me." Feng Bujue asked. "That's right," the shooter replied. "What if I lose?" Feng Bujue was very sensitive to the details of bets. He would not agree without thinking. "If you lose a total of 10 rounds, you have to leave your temporary work permit," the shooter replied. "Huh?" Feng Bujue thought for a moment. "What do you need that for? It's only valid for 1. "I have my reasons," the shooter interrupted Feng Bujue. The marksman interrupted Brother Ju. From his tone and expression, he seemed to know more about this document than Brother Ju did. Feng Bujue hesitated for a moment. "You have to tell me the specific rules first, then I can decide." Hearing this, the Sagittarius's lips curled into a smile, like a fisherman seeing a fish take the bait. "Huh, sure." Chapter 761. The rules proposed by the shooter were naturally different from a regular darts competition. Feng Bujue was already mentally prepared for this. He didn't think that anyone would bother with a darts competition in a bar. But Brother Ju didn't expect the shooter to come up with a format that was, "Shoot an apple." When the shooter said these 3 words, Feng Bujue immediately repeated them, as if he wanted to make sure he heard correctly. "Yes, shoot an apple," the shooter replied leisurely after rolling a cigarette for himself and taking a puff. "With darts?" Feng Bujue asked again. "With darts," the shooter replied. "Oh." Feng Bujue nodded. His "oh" didn't mean that he understood anything. He was just stalling for time. Brother Ju knew that if the shooter was really a darts expert, he could even shoot cherries, let alone apples. So, with this development, there had to be a conspiracy. After thinking for a few seconds, Feng Bujue asked a very constructive question. "So, where should I put the apple?" "On Yang's head," the shooter replied calmly as he blew out a smoke ring. "Huh?" Feng Bujue glanced at Yang. "Is that okay?" "Of course." Yang gave a firm answer with a straight face. Let me make sure," Feng Bujue said to Yang. "If I accidentally throw a dart on your head or face, what will you do?" "I'll kill you," Yang replied calmly. Okay. Feng Bujue wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and turned to look at the shooter. "Please continue," the shooter replied while smoking. "During the competition, Yang will stand in front of that wall with the apple on his head." He pointed to the wall on the other side of the bar. "And the 2 of us will stay at the bar and take turns throwing darts at the apple." "Wait a minute." Feng Bujue very sensitively caught something, and he interrupted to ask, "When we throw the darts, will Yang move?" The Sagittarius laughed. "Ha, you're smart, Dave." He blew out another puff of smoke. "Foo-foo, of course he will move. As long as the apple doesn't fall from the top of his head, he can move however he wants." "I'm afraid that's not fair," Feng Bujue said. "As long as you 2 cooperate a little, I'll definitely lose one eye." Ha ha ha. The shooter laughed. Dave, my friend, you think too much. He put a hand on Brother Jew's shoulder and laughed. Why would I cheat? Is it to win your temporary work permit? If I really want that thing, I could just force you to hand it over with a gun. Well, that's true. Feng Bujue thought about it, and it was really the case. Taking a step back, this isn't an official competition. There isn't even an audience. Aside from the wager, do I have any incentive to cheat? The shooter asked again. I don't think so, Feng Bujue replied. So, the shooter stood up and paced around the bar. You don't have to worry about fairness. I can guarantee that in the face of every dart, Yang will do his best to dodge it, no matter who threw the dart. Understood, Feng Bujue said in a low voice. You just want to find an expert who is on par with you, but you're afraid that I'll do it half-heartedly. It only took him a short time to figure out the shooter's intention. So, you proposed this wager. He pointed at his temporary work permit. This permit is worthless to you, but to me, it's indispensable. So, you want to use it as a wager, and let me do my best. Ha! Like I said, you're a smart man. The shooter pointed at Brother Bujue with a cigarette in his hand and smiled. Okay, let's talk about the other rules. Feng Bujue's tone when he said this basically showed that he had accepted the challenge. A total of 21 rounds, the shooter continued. No matter the final score, we have to play to the end. Feng Bujue crossed his arms and rested his chin on his hand. He raised his eyebrows and said, in other words, even if you win the first 10 rounds and win my temporary work permit in the remaining 11 rounds, I'll still have the opportunity to ask you questions. That's right, the shooter added. On the other hand, even if you win the first 12 rounds and eliminate the possibility of me winning, I'll still play all 21 rounds with you. I have no reason to refuse these rules that are beneficial to me, Feng Bujue replied. Very good. The shooter nodded and then explained, in each round, each person will hold 3 darts and take turns throwing them. Whoever hits the apple first will be considered the winner. If no one hits the apple after all 6 darts are thrown, the round will be considered draw. So what if it's a draw? Feng Bujue asked. A draw is a draw, the shooter said. My wins will not be accumulated, and you can't ask questions. Okay, that's fair, Feng Bujue said. Foo-foo. That's about it. If there are no more questions, let's begin. When the shooter said this, he took one last puff of his cigarette. Then he extinguished the cigarette and stood up. Okay. Feng Bujue also stood up. As he spoke, he raised his hands, crossed his fingers, and pushed his palms outward. This seemed to be a warm-up. Give me a moment. Seeing that the two had agreed, Yang walked out from the bar and walked into a room in the corner of the bar. 1 minute later, he came out with a basket of apples in his hand. I'm ready. A few seconds later, Yang placed an apple on his bald head and stood calmly in front of the far wall. Do you want to go first? The shooter took 6 darts from a bar and handed 3 to Brother Jew. I can choose to go first and then attack later? Brother Jew wondered. Yes, the shooter said. But this is only the first round. We'll take turns to go first. Then I'll definitely go first, Feng Bujue replied. This was a very simple calculation. First of all, going first would give you an advantage. As long as you hit the first dart, the person who attacked later would not even have a chance to make a move and would lose the game. Secondly, the person who chose to go first in the odd round would have one more chance than the opponent because there were a total of 21 rounds of darts. Then please. The Sagittarius made a please gesture and sat on the side in a relaxed manner, watching from the sidelines. Ha-ha! Feng Bujue chuckled coldly internally. Son of a b*****. He thinks he has some skill, so he underestimates me. Humph! At the very least, I am a man with level C marksmanship. Even in the real world, I can easily throw an apple with a dart. At this moment, Brother Jew was full of confidence. He was at least 80% sure that he would hit the target. Although Yang's ability to move seemed to be a variable, considering that the apple would not fall from the top of his head, it was not a problem. With the apple on top of his head, how much could he move? At most, he could shrink his neck or move a few centimeters to the side. Okay, watch my first dart. Feng Bujue raised his elbow and threw the dart. For a moment, he thought that he had won the game. However, just as Brother Jew threw the dart, Yang, with the apple on top of his head, shouted and stretched his neck. In a split second, the apple flew up vertically, and Yang's body sank down along with the movement of his neck, causing him to fall flat on his back. 1 second later, Feng Bujue's dart flew between the apple and Yang's head without hitting anything. After the dart flew past, Yang straightened his body and caught the apple on top of his head. Of course, everyone knew that the surface of an apple was uneven and the top of a person's head was not flat. Therefore, when the two surfaces touched, the apple would definitely roll in a certain direction. Normally, the apple would fall to the ground. However, Yang could use his spring-like neck, his strange body movements, and his sharp head movements to stabilize the apple within 2 seconds. You want to hit the apple on top of my head with this level of skill? After Yang steadied himself, he gave Feng Bujue a look of disdain and said in a rather disdainful tone, "Hey." Brother Jew was deeply shocked. He felt that his heart had been greatly damaged. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This doesn't make sense. This is indeed not science. Yang had an unfathomable expression and said solemnly, "This is a skill that has been honed and refined over and over again. You've been focusing on the apple for 30 years. Feng Bujue shouted, "Where's the most basic trust between people? Now you know the profoundness of the darts world, young man." At this time, the archer walked over from the side and looked up at Brother Jew. "Why do you suddenly refer to me as a Japanese person? Didn't you call me young man earlier?" Feng Bujue could not suppress his urge to complain. "By the way, what is this Daiko world anyway? Is it a forbidden territory that only the two of you know about?" "Fine." The archer ignored Brother Jew's words and picked up his first dart. "I'll let you see. The real darts. What's the difference between you and a real darter?" Feng Bujue heard another word that sounded like a chinibyu. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Are you sure you didn't make up this messy setting on the spot? Watch this." The archer shouted and used a set of footwork that old ladies use to dance. He took a step forward and swung his wrist to strike. Swish! 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 At that moment, the small dart seemed to have turned into a nimble, poisonous snake, and its surroundings were faintly emitting a copper-colored light. With the sound of the wind, the dart drew an arc in the air and flew towards the apple on top of Yang's head. On the other hand, Yang was not to be outdone. He spun in a circle at high speed, causing the apple to spin. Then, he retracted his body and placed one hand on the ground. The moment the apple started to fall due to gravity, he flipped it back up, and so the apple flew in an arc, and it was a very high parabola, as if it was drawing a zero in the air. In the end, it still flew towards Yang's head. Bang! 2 seconds later, the dart was embedded in the wall. The apple did not fall to the ground. It turned out that, even though the dart did not hit the apple, the dart had rubbed against the apple's skin. This caused the frequency and angle of the rotation of the apple to change. Therefore, the trajectory of the falling apple changed accordingly. Seeing this, Yang's reaction was lightning fast. He immediately placed both hands on the ground and performed a neat Thomas spin to forcibly shift his body center of gravity. The next second, after a half a meter away, he successfully caught the apple on top of his head again. However, this time a strand of cold sweat flowed down his bald head. Ha ha ha. The archer did not show any disappointment when his attack missed. On the contrary, he revealed a smile. "Old friend, the current you, facing my boomerang dart, is it so easy for you?" Yang responded with a sympathetic look and replied with a straight face, "Same to you. The only person who can force me to use the Thomas spin to catch fruit is you. These two are King kidding me." The corner of Feng Bujue's mouth twitched, and he roared in his heart. "What's with the boomerang dart? Please go back to the set of the king of the net. Don't say Thomas spin to catch fruit. This name is an insult to all the names of killing moves. It's mental pollution, isn't it? Okay, Dave, it's your turn again." After throwing the dart, the shooter sat back on the stool by the bar. "You should know how to play this game now, right? Then show us your real skills." "Show your mother." Feng Bujue was cursing. I really want to find 18 strong bald men to beat you with folding stools. Although he was depressed, the game had already started. He had to finish it. Therefore, he silently raised his second dart. Chapter 762. Even though Feng Bujue tried his best to keep the game going, there was still a huge gap between their abilities. After the first 10 rounds, Brother Ju's record was 0 wins, 5 draws, and 5 losses. In a sense, this was no longer a battle between him and the shooter, but a battle between the shooter and Yang. Feng Bujue looked more like a spectator. He would come up from time to time and then go back down to watch the performance of the two gods. It's your turn to attack again, Dave. At the start of the 11th round, the shooter went to the bar and poured himself a glass of wine. He said to Brother Ju, "Are you still going to stick to the straight darts that have average speed and strength?" Huh. Feng Bujue laughed, but did not say anything. He silently stepped forward, raised his hand, aimed, and threw the dart. Then he watched as the dart he threw was easily dodged by Yang. What the F***CK does this have to do with what I want to do? Brother Ju looked calm on the surface, but in his heart, he was saying, if I could throw the dart like yours, would I not throw it? At this point, Feng Bujue basically did not have any expectations of being asked questions. The only hope in his heart was that Brother Yang could take a few more rounds and increase the number of draws. As long as the number of draws reached 12, he would not lose his temporary work permit. Humph! Seeing Feng Bujue miss again, the archer scoffed coldly. Looks like you still don't plan to play with us seriously. His eyes narrowed. Do you think the power that I have shown so far is not enough to be your opponent? I didn't say that. Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes. That's enough. You don't have to deny it. The shooter waved his hand to interrupt Brother Ju and looked at Yang Dao. Old man, it seems like we're being looked down upon. Shouldn't we be a little more serious? Yes, Yang replied in a deep voice. I was thinking the same thing. As he spoke, his bald head swung toward his left and right shoulders, causing the muscles and bones around his neck to make cracking sounds. Just in time, I'm almost done warming up. Hey, was that just a warm-up? Feng Bujue looked at them, not knowing what to say other than complaining. Watch carefully. Dave, this is my true strength. At that moment, the archer shouted and stood up from the bar counter. He did a few somersaults in the narrow space of the bar and threw a dart with a flip of his arm. It was an ordinary dart. However, the airflow brought about by the dart had already taken the shape of a long spear. It seemed to be moving like lightning, and its might was terrifying. Oomph. On the other side, a cold smile appeared on Yang's face. Then I'll use some of my true abilities as well. Before he could even finish speaking, his clothes had already been ripped apart. He saw that this 2-meter-tall bald man had torn the bartender's uniform into a pile of rags with just a burst of energy. Yang, whose upper body was naked, tightened his strong muscles and muttered to himself. A wave-like airflow instantly swirled around his body and pushed the apple on top of his head into the air. What? The archer saw this and was slightly startled. Could this be the legendary Apple Domain? That's right. Yang replied with a smile. Materialize your control over the apple and create a force field that can move the apple freely. No matter what kind of attack it is, it can avoid an absolute domain. While the two of them were talking, the apple and the dart were flying back and forth in the air. They were like two flies, and there was no sign of them stopping. One of them suddenly blurted out a sentence in Japanese without any sense of awkwardness and stated the name of the opponent's skill with a serious expression. The other one nodded and used a set of Chinibu theory to explain the theory behind his own skill. Feng Bujue's current mood could only be described with the word pain in the balls. He shook his head and mumbled softly. Based on this kind of development, there should be a series of twists and turns in the future. He did not know whether he should be happy for his brother Ju, because he had guessed it right. What a pity. After a few seconds, the archer's expression changed. Even if you're in Apple's territory, you won't be able to escape my attack. He waved his arm and laughed. 3 more seconds. My dart will hit the target. Just as he said the word hit, the dart that had already left his hand accelerated again in midair, moving at a speed that was far faster than the apple and at an incredible angle. This is, for the first time in this duel, Yang showed a look of surprise. The legendary, extreme talent? Accept your fate, Yang, the archer said. In front of my absolute prediction, there will be no exceptions. How can I admit defeat here? Unexpectedly, Yang's eyes immediately lit up with fighting spirit. Then he howled like a pig being slaughtered. Accompanied by his howl, the speed of the apple in midair suddenly accelerated, once again exceeding the speed of the dart. Masaka, the archer's Japanese became more and more natural. You have comprehended the extreme talent of thousand tempering. How is it, old man? Yang replied, 3 seconds have passed, and your absolute prediction has been broken by me. Don't be so smug. I haven't lost yet. The archer waved his hands like claws, as if he was remotely controlling the dart from afar. Then let's see if you can hit the apple. Yang also took a firm horse stance, raised his head, and moved the dart swiftly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. For a time, the bar was filled with the sound of 2 streams of air colliding. This 11th duel of dart against apple turned into a tug of war. However, the result of this duel was actually not that important anymore. This was because when the archer and Yang focused on the dart and the dart in midair, Fong Bujue had already quietly walked behind the bar counter, grabbed the shotgun and temporary work pass, and then quickly and quietly left the bar. It was not until 15 minutes later, when the winner was decided between the archer and Yang, that one person was missing from the bar. Not bad. Fong Bujue, who had left the bar, pedaled lazily on his bicycle, heading toward the address of the 10th recipient. Even though I wasted a lot of time, but I successfully replenished my life points and stamina points, and I got a reliable shooting weapon. The mental pollution was worth it. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.